Chapter 5968. After all, love was free now, and whether Lin liked his disciple or not was another matter. Boss Bai couldn't care so much. He actually really wanted Lin and Xin to communicate more. Although Lin didn't know alchemy, his medical skills and theoretical knowledge were quite powerful. Especially today, the speed and effect of Lin Yi's healing for Han Jingjing made Boss Bai gasp in amazement. And it was naturally his wish to have Lin visit his home often. That was why he said that. He didn't expect Xin to misunderstand. Okay, let's talk later. See you later. Boss Bai didn't hear the negative emotions in Xin's tone. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Xin hung up the phone and couldn't help but pout. She thought to herself, I don't care what kind of young talent you are. I guarantee that you won't want to eat again after eating and won't dare to come again. Humph. After the call, Lin returned to Boss Bai's office, and Boss Bai had just finished the call. Mr. Bai, have you made the arrangements? Lin asked. Yes, everything is arranged. Let's go together. Boss Bai said, stood up, and walked out of the office with Lin walking to the family area of the school. Boss Bai lived in a separate professor's villa in the university. His status was superior, so he was naturally qualified to enjoy the villa. As they walked, Boss Bai introduced, this disciple of mine not only makes rapid progress in alchemy, she also has a very outstanding ability in identifying medicinal herbs. You can often discuss and compare notes. Especially her ability to identify medicinal herbs, she is not worse than you. Boss Bai said, currently, she is already a first-grade alchemist, and she's trying to break through to the second grade. Oh, so good. Lin couldn't help but be a little surprised. Boss Bai used to be a genius alchemist, as long as his disciples' aptitude met the requirements. And some were not so stupid, it was not surprising that she became a first-grade alchemist. But in identifying medicinal herbs, this was talent. Lin had this kind of talent, and even Old Man Lin was slightly inferior to him. So when Lin heard that there was someone who was similar to him, he was naturally interested. Of course, if it weren't for your good relationship with Han Jingjing, I would have introduced her to be your girlfriend, Boss Bai said. I'll pass. You can introduce me to Bai Weitu or Bai Weikai. Lin said, do you think I don't know that Bai Weitua has a girlfriend? Isn't she called Himewa? Boss Bai said, and even if he doesn't, I won't introduce him. They're not the same kind of people, and they won't be happy in the future. But you are different. You are both cultivators, and you both have talents in this aspect, so Bai Weikai can't. Lin smiled and didn't continue. His current love life was already very complicated. Naturally, he would not accept Boss Bai's kindness. As the two talked, they came to the school's family area. In front of Boss Bai's villa, Lin looked at the medicinal herbs planted in Boss Bai's yard and couldn't help but be a little surprised. It was already winter. Although these medicinal herbs were in the self-made greenhouse, it was quite difficult to cultivate them. It seemed that Boss Bai still had some ability in cultivating medicinal herbs. He should even be a little better than Old Man Lin. After all, the geographical location of West Star Mountain Village was like spring all year round, which was more suitable for the growth of medicinal herbs. But here it was different. Without some special methods, it was difficult to let the medicinal herbs grow. Are you interested in my medicinal herbs? Boss Bai saw that Lin was looking at the medicinal herbs in the yard, so he asked with a smile. Yes, but they are all medicinal herbs used to make first-grade pills. The second-grade pill only has one kind of medicinal herb, which is laxative pill. Lin said, my disciple is currently a first-grade alchemist, so I planted some medicinal herbs needed for first-grade pills. As for second-grade pills, she is currently only a trial, so she can't form pills yet. So any pill is the same. The medicinal herbs used for laxative pill are easier to grow, have a higher yield, and are easier to cultivate, so I planted this one. Boss Bai explained, when she truly becomes a second-grade alchemist, I will cultivate it again. Lin nodded and didn't say anything else. In the kitchen of Boss Bai's house, a beautiful figure was busy. If Lin was here, he would definitely be surprised because this person was actually Xiao Shi, Guan Xin. According to Boss Bai's instructions, Guan Xin made 8 dishes and 1 soup, all of which were meticulously made by her. Although she didn't really want to get to know some young talent, he was after all someone her master admired. Since Boss Bai had already asked, Guan Xin couldn't refuse, but it was impossible for her to use her best cooking skills to entertain the guests. This was also because Boss Bai was usually too kind to her. If it was a master and disciple in a normal sect, then how could the disciple dare to disregard the master's words and execute them? However, Guan Xin was Boss Bai's last disciple, and because of her rapid progress in alchemy, Boss Bai doted on her a lot. This was also the reason why Guan Xin dared to cook terrible food. In her eyes, the dishes she cooked only needed to look good, and if the taste was bad, even if the guests were unhappy after eating, they wouldn't be able to say anything, and at most, they wouldn't come to eat again. In the end, she made a big mistake. It turned out that the young talent her grandpa had been talking about was her sweetheart, Lin Yi. At that time, Guan Xin regretted it so much that she wanted to die. She finally got to show off her cooking skills in front of her sweetheart, but she didn't think that it would be ruined by her own hands. Fortunately, Linny didn't mind, or Guan Xin would be really embarrassed. Sigh, it's been a few months since I've been Boss Bai's disciple. I wonder how Lin Yi is doing? She hadn't heard from him for a long time, and she couldn't help but think of Lin Yi's tall and straight figure. Thinking of Lin Yi, Guan Xin couldn't let the young talent who came today have any feelings for her. What if he really took a liking to her and came to visit often? At that time, she wouldn't be able to kick this senior or junior brother out because of her master's face, and that would be troublesome. Therefore, Guan Xin gave it her all, displaying her cooking skills to the fullest. The dishes she made were as beautiful as they could be, but the taste was as bad as it could be. It was guaranteed that people who ate it once wouldn't want to eat it a second time in 100 years. The doorbell of Master Bai's villa rang as the delicately made, fragrant, and tasty dishes were served on the table. Chapter 5969. Guan Xin was embarrassed, but she couldn't say it out loud. She didn't know how to explain. At that moment, Lenny had just finished making the last steamed pork with preserved vegetables, and had just come back. Hearing Boss Bai's question, Lin Yi explained with a smile, "Well, this is actually what happened." Lin Yi then told Boss Bai and Madame Bai about his visit to Guan Xiumin's house. Coming from Lin Yi's mouth, it was naturally interesting. Boss Bai and Madame Bai were amused and didn't blame Guan Xin anymore. Haha, so that's how it is. All right, then let's have a taste of Lin Yi's cooking. Boss Bai picked up another piece of meat and carefully put it in his mouth. But this time, he wasn't confident enough to swallow it all at once. Instead, he savored it slowly. But this time, as soon as it entered his mouth, the rich aroma made him swallow the rest of the meat as well. Delicious. Even better than Xin's cooking? Mistress Bai took a bite of the cold dish, nodding to herself. Changing a dish was much harder than cooking, and Guan Xin's dish was already disgusting. But Lin Yi was able to turn it back into a delicacy after putting it back into the wok. Just how skilled did he have to be to do that? This is not something that can be done by just anyone with good cooking skills. Guan Xin's face was also full of admiration. Lin Yi didn't do anything last time, so she didn't know that Lin Yi had this kind of ability. Now that she saw Lin Yi, she was even more moved. No wonder her grandpa and master admired him so much. So when Boss Bai said that Lin Yi was better than her, she wasn't angry. Instead, she felt proud. Yes, Lin Yi is actually very good. Haha, I thought that Xin wouldn't be happy if Lin Yi was the senior brother, but it seems like that won't be the case, right? Boss Bai asked with a smile. Yes, of course not. Guan Xin nodded matter-of-factly, but she was curious. Lin Yi, you know alchemy too? I won't. Lin Yi simply shook his head and said, My constitution is very strange. I can condense a pill fire, but I can't control the intensity and temperature of the fire. Is it because your body lacks the wood attribute? Guan Xin paused. That's not it. Maybe there are too many attributes, so it's a mess, Lin Yi said. That's right. Lin Yi's body has too many attributes, and they aren't fusing well with each other, causing them to restrain and restrict each other. That's why he's in such a situation. These days, I've been looking through some ancient books left behind by my sect, hoping to find a reliable solution. Boss Bai nodded and said, "But we haven't found anything yet, but we have found some clues." In Lin Yi's case, he lacks an opportunity. If we can combine the several mutually restraining attributes in his body and form a small cycle in his body, the problem will be solved. Minor circulation? Lin Yi didn't expect Boss Bai to find a solution. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. In other words, it's still possible for me to make alchemy, right? That's right. Boss Bai nodded and said, "You can indeed make alchemy, and similar situations have happened in the past generations of my sect. It's just that when I left, I took too little information with me. Most of the information I took was related to alchemy, not the records of those strange things. It's impossible to go back and ask about it now." Lin Yi nodded. He wasn't too disappointed. After all, what Boss Bai said was already a pleasant surprise for Lin Yi. Before, Lin Yi thought that he couldn't make alchemy at all, but now it seemed that he could. It was just that the attributes in his body hadn't fused and formed a small cycle. So there was a situation where they mutually restrained each other. "It's okay, as long as there's hope," Lin Yi said. "As for the specific method, we can slowly study and explore it. Well, come to my study after dinner. I'll show you that book." Boss Bai said, "Okay." Lin Yi nodded readily. Guan Xin was confused. These attributes mutually restrained each other, a small cycle. She hadn't come into contact with it before, so she didn't really understand it. However, she only understood one thing, and that was that Lin Yi couldn't make alchemy, but there was hope for him to make alchemy. Senior brother Lin Yi, then you have to work hard. Xin is already a first-grade alchemist, and I'm trying to break through to second grade," Guan Xin said with some pride. She finally had something better than Lin Yi, and could finally become his right-hand man. Guan Xin was very happy today. Originally, she didn't have much interest in learning alchemy. She only wanted to learn medical knowledge so that she could go back and help Lin Yi's company. Boss Bai's ardent hope made Guan Xin have no choice but to learn alchemy. Now, it seemed that Lin Yi had also come into contact with alchemy, so Guan Xin felt that learning alchemy was a wise choice. She finally had something to surpass Lin Yi. "Hee okay," Lin Yi said with a smile. "Right, Xin. What are you trying to break through to second-grade alchemist? Is there any difficulty?" "Difficulty? Not for now. This thing is practice makes perfect." Guan Xin shook her head. "I haven't made a second-grade pill yet." "Actually, that's not the case." Boss Bai suddenly opened his mouth. "The reason why Xin's success rate is so low is because the second-grade medicine cauldron I have here is a bit too broken. There's a crack on it, and during the alchemy process, the pill's aura will leak out, so the success rate is naturally much lower than normal. Under these circumstances, Xin's low success rate is understandable." "Crack." Lin Yi paused. "Teacher Bai, wouldn't you use a medicine cauldron without a crack?" "This medicine cauldron is what I used when I was learning alchemy. I brought it with me back then as a souvenir. I can't even make pills myself, so what's the point of carrying a good medicine cauldron around?" Boss Bai smiled bitterly. Who would have thought that after a few decades, I would be able to take in a disciple and teach her alchemy? The reason why Boss Bai was teaching outside was to stay away from the disputes of that place, and to find a wood-type inheritor according to the ancestors' teachings. A girl who was born with an extremely keen intuition for herbs. But when Boss Bai saw Guan Xin, he found that she not only had the talent of an inheritor, but also an alchemist, so he taught her alchemy. Regarding that, Boss Bai really couldn't ask Xianshun for a second-grade medicine tripod. After all, Xianshun was only inclined to Boss Bai to find a pure successor, not to raise an alchemist to be continued. Chapter 5970. Morning, Jing. How did you sleep last night? Did you have any nightmares? Lin Yi asked. No, I dreamt that I want to fight monsters with Lin Yi Gidge. I slept very well. Han Jingjing didn't seem to be affected by yesterday's events at all. Jingjing sent all the information to the cloud disk and set a password. Even if the tablet was stolen, it wouldn't be a problem. I don't have to worry about them cracking the password. I could delete it from other apps at any time. Oh, Lin Yi didn't really understand. He only nodded and let out a sigh of relief. He was worried about Han Jingjing's emotions, but it seemed like she wasn't affected at all. Breakfast is ready. Let's go eat together. Okay. Han Jingjing nodded and went to wake up her brother, Han Xiao Xiao, and went to eat with Lin. On this day, 3 things happened in the school. The first was that the school was going to host a charity gala. This was an event that was held every year. The school consciously cultivated the students' love. During the gala, some items would be auctioned. Some of these items were donated by students, and some were donated by celebrities. However, the money from the auction would be donated according to the situation. For example, in remote mountainous areas, welfare homes, orphanages, and so on, the donation targets were randomly decided by the school. However, when Linny heard the news, the first thing he thought of was Yu Xiaoka's orphanage. Although the students were the main group in the school's auction, there were many successful graduates and celebrities participating. There weren't many of them, but the amount of money they donated was much more than the students. Especially in a provincial city like Donghai, these celebrities would donate at least $1 million, so the total amount of money raised in every charity gala was quite sizable. So, Lin Yi had an idea. For this kind of thing, Lin Yi could only ask Boss Bai. Given his special position in the school, Lin Yi thought that he could help, right? As expected, after Boss Bai received Lin Yi's call, he agreed without hesitation. Okay, I understand. I will suggest it to the school. It's not a big problem. If you want me to give this money to you personally, I definitely can't do it. But donating it to the orphanage is naturally doable. After all, this money was originally going to be donated to people who needed it. Thank you, Teacher Bai. After what happened yesterday, the relationship between Lin Yi and Boss Bai was much closer. Now that Boss Bai agreed to help, there shouldn't be much of a problem. It's nothing. It's not a big deal. Boss Bai smiled and said indifferently. The second thing was that Zhao Qibing's floating cloud bar had opened near the school. Su Jianong found some students and started distributing flyers in the school. Lin Yi received one as well. Qibing's action surprised Lin Yi. This guy was actually trying to get close to him. Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up? The third thing was that Pin Liang had returned to school, but this time he kept a low profile. He didn't challenge anyone, nor did he challenge Lin Yi directly. Instead, he went to school with Xiaofu as usual and went to class as usual. Although Lin Yi got the news, the two didn't do anything special. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't cause trouble for them. He was happy with the peace and quiet. After the first class, Lin Yi called Yu Xiaoka, planning to ask her about the orphanage situation. Yu Xiaoka had quite a headache recently. There was a saying that people were afraid of being famous, just as pigs were afraid of being fat. The orphanage was famous now, and the new building was beautiful and practical. As a result, the number of orphans had increased a lot, especially the sick orphans. They were all sent to Yu Xiaoka's orphanage from hospitals all over the country. In fact, this couldn't be helped. Some poor people had children, and the children were sick. They didn't have money to treat them, so they could only leave them in the hospital. It wasn't the parents' fault. They had no other choice. As far as they were concerned, if there was a kind-hearted person or an orphanage that took them in, the child might be able to live. But if they couldn't treat them, they would die. However, this kind of sick orphan was rarely adopted. Even if those infertile couples adopted children, they would adopt healthy ones, who would adopt a sick baby. And so, the monthly medical expenses had become the second biggest expense after the orphanage's construction and food, and it was increasing every day. Yu Xiaoka couldn't just ignore these sick abandoned babies, could she? She wouldn't be Yu Xiaoka if she were that heartless. And so, Yu Xiaoka was willing to lower the standard of the orphanage's food in order to save the money for these filial children. At this moment, Yu Xiaoka was thinking about accepting a mission from the thief's door. She couldn't find a suitable one. The ones with too much money were too dangerous, or they were unrealistic. The simple ones were too little money, and they wasted a lot of time. Yu Xiaoka really didn't know what to choose. Lin Yi's call came in. Yu Xiaoka was a kind-hearted person, and she didn't want to answer the call from her admirer. But Lin Yi was her savior, and it wouldn't be good if she didn't answer. She had no choice. Hello, Lin Yi, you're looking for me? Oh, I'm just asking. How's the orphanage? Do you have enough money? Lin Yi frowned when he heard the bad tone in Yu Xiaoka's voice. What was wrong with Yu Xiaoka? Did she eat gunpowder? Did she have this attitude every time he saw her? It's all right. You don't have to worry about the money. I'll take care of it myself. Yu Xiaoka said coldly. I'm ready to accept a mission from the thief store. It's a bit hard, but if I do it well, I'll get 10 million, right? You're going to accept a mission from the thief store again. Lenny paused. He was about to say that he hadn't learned his lesson from the grave robbery. But then he realized that his identity was Lin Yi, not the male thief. How would he know about the grave robbery? Yu Xiaoka only mentioned the mission to him, but she didn't tell him the details. Lin Yi quickly changed his words. The missions there are very hard, right? It'll be hard even for me. If you go, you'll be at a disadvantage. Do I need your concern? Yu Xiaoka didn't know why, but she was unhappy whenever Lin Yi cared about her. Chapter 59-71. She felt that Lin Yi had an ulterior motive towards her, and so she tried her best to distance herself from Lin Yi. What if I don't accept the mission? You really don't know how expensive it is if you don't take care of the household. The orphanage receives many sick and abandoned babies from all over the country, and it's a huge expense just to treat them. What should I do if I don't accept the mission? I see. Lin Yi didn't expect the orphanage to have such a huge amount of problems, but he didn't want Xiaoka to be too tired. Don't make it hard for yourself. I'll help you think of a way. Other than the necessary investment from Fatty Lai, I'll help you think of other ways. In a few days, our school will have a charity banquet, and there will be an auction to raise money. I've already told my teacher that all the money raised will be donated to your orphanage. Huh? Donated to me? Xiaoka froze for a moment, and then became happy, but after the happiness, deep worry flashed in her eyes. Lin Yi was really too eager to help her. Xiaoka didn't believe that Lin Yi was just helping the orphanage. Even if he was a great philanthropist, there was no need for him to do this, right? Unless Xiaoka was a staff member of the orphanage. Wouldn't that happen? In fact, Lin Yi wasn't so simple. Lin Yi was doing this because of the other male thief's identity, but Xiaoka didn't know about these things. And the money raised this time should be quite a lot. According to my teacher, the charity banquet every year can raise at least 10 million, up to 100 million. So forget about that thief store mission. Lin Yi said, how old are you? You should enjoy life at this age and do things that are appropriate for a girl your age. What should a girl my age do? Xiaoka was confused. She really didn't know what she should be doing at her age. Ever since she grew up, she had been running around for the orphanage. She didn't know what she should be doing. For example, going shopping, going to a beauty salon, buying some pretty clothes. Lin Yi thought about it and told Xiaoka what the Miss and Shu often did. Xiaoka was speechless. Do you think I'm a Miss Perfect? Where'd I get the money? I'll give it to you, Lin Yi said. Fine. Yu Xiaoka was so angry that she almost threw the phone on the ground. If it weren't for the fact that she had to buy a new phone, she would have thrown it out a long time ago. However, she still hung up on Lin Yi angrily. Humph, 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 humph. You've finally revealed your fox's tail, haven't you? You're giving me money? You wanted to go shopping for clothes? Isn't this the same as providing for me? I finally figured out what you were thinking. You really are interested in me. But what to do? If Lin Yi is really interested in me, can I reject him? If I reject him, what if he stops collecting money for the orphanage? But she couldn't let the male thief down. If she hadn't met him before, she wouldn't have rejected him like this. It wasn't easy to find someone who could support the orphanage's expenses, and it wasn't a bad idea to be his sugar mom. For the sake of the orphanage's children, it was fine. She could accept it. But now that Xiaoka had someone else in her heart, her way of thinking couldn't help but change a little. She was very repulsed by the meaning Lin Yi revealed. So annoying. What should I do? Xiaoka was troubled again. She couldn't reject the temptation of Lin Yi's money, but she didn't want anything to happen between her and Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't look like an idiot who didn't ask for anything in return. So, Xiaoka knew that if she owed more and more favors like this, she'd be in big trouble in the end. Whatever. She'd just deal with the things in front of her first. She didn't directly respond to Lin Yi anymore. It was his business if he was willing to give her money, but if things really came out, she'd just reject him. He couldn't ask for the money back, could he? The male thief was still the nice. He gave her so much money and good stuff without asking for anything in return, much better than Lenny. If Lenny knew what Xiaoka was thinking, he'd probably be depressed. How much did the male thief give her? His identity as Lin, he gave her more than 10 times what the male thief gave her. But at this moment, Lenny looked at the phone in his hand curiously. What was wrong with Xiaoka? Did she just hang up and say goodbye? And it seemed like she was going berserk. He just asked her to go shopping. Did she have to be like this? Could it be that she had shopping rejection syndrome? Lin, he shook his head, but didn't call Xiaoka again. He told her everything he needed to know, and when the money from the auction came out, he just donated to the orphanage. At noon, after class, Boss Bai was done with this matter. He directed the donation to the orphanage in Songshan and announced the details of the charity party in front of the whole class. On this Friday night, our school will hold an annual charity evening party. Boss Bai said, I think many students have already seen the news on the BBS forum of our school. As for the details, I still have to tell you. The charity evening party is divided into 2 parts. The first part is the auction. The so-called auction is for everyone to donate some auction items and put them up for auction. There is no specific type of auction item. Anything is fine, but it has to be something worthy, otherwise it might not pass the audit. This is a voluntary donation, and there are no special requirements. The people who will participate in the auction are us students and some alumni from the previous years, as well as the school staff and celebrities from the society. Everyone is willing to bid, and all the money from the auction will be donated to the orphanage. The second part is a voluntary donation, and there are no restrictions on the amount of money you can donate. As for the third segment, it's a masquerade ball. However, there's a limit to the conditions for participation. Only those who have donated and successfully traded items in the previous auctions, or those who have successfully bid for the items, can participate. Of course, this is also voluntary. Those who meet the requirements can also participate or not. However, this activity has always been a tradition of our school. At the masquerade ball, everyone can guess the identity of others. If you guess correctly, you can ask the person who is recognized to promise the other person one thing. Chapter 5972. Xinyan didn't wait for Lin Yi's reply before falling asleep. Lin didn't know if he should laugh or cry. Was she too tired yesterday? That couldn't be. Xinyan went to school like normal yesterday and didn't do anything that drained her energy. Lin Yi had to continue practicing, so she went to bed early. Why was she so sleepy today? But since Xinyan said so, Lin Yi had no choice but to leave her be. He went out to talk to Meng Yao and started eating breakfast, but Lin Yi prepared a portion for Xinyan in a lunchbox. He'd bring it to school later. Lin Yi had delayed going to school as much as he could, but even so, Xinyan was still drowsy when she woke up. She followed Lin Yi to the car and fell asleep in the car again. Lin Yi, is Xinyan sick again? Can you give her a checkup later? Meng Yao felt that something was wrong with Xinyan. She hadn't been like this yesterday, when Lin Yi had gone to the tomb yesterday. Xinyan had woken up in high spirits, completely different from today. How could there be such a drastic change in just one day? All right, I'll check her when we get to school. Lin Yi nodded. They parked the car at school, and Xinyan had to get up no matter how reluctant she was. She couldn't just sleep on the side of the road. Could she? She didn't have the ability to sleepwalk yet. Do you want me to carry you to class? Lin Yi asked, seeing how sleepy Xinyan was. Xinyan was almost tempted by Lin Yi, but she couldn't provoke Zhao Long in school. She gritted her teeth and shook her head. No need, I can walk myself. All right. Lin Yi didn't insist and went to class with Xinyan. Wang Xinyan's head was heavy, and her feet were light. She almost fell a few times, and when she reached her seat, she fell asleep before Boss Bai came. Lin Yi took the opportunity to examine her, and found that Xinyan's body, which had just recovered, was showing signs of weakness again. This situation surprised Lin Yi. Xinyan had been drinking the medicine Lin Yi made for her every day, and her body should have been getting better and better. Why was it getting worse and worse? Lin Yi frowned, not understanding what was going on. Xinyan had been so energetic last night. Why was she like this morning? Before Lin Yi could think about it, Boss Bai walked into the classroom, and a new lesson started. Lin Yi saw that Xin Yan was too tired, so he didn't disturb her. He took her notes and started making notes for her. It was fine if Lin Yi didn't remember these things. He was Boss Bai's special student, after all, and he only came to class out of interest. Xiaolong looked at Lin Yi and Xin Yan, a dark look in his eyes. He didn't know how his brother Kong Mingming was doing in the Sky Elixir sect, and what kind of position he had. Watching his fiancée get close to another man really pissed him off. Kong bro, why don't you give your brother a call and ask him how he's doing? Han Hu Right suggested, noticing Xiaolong's displeasure. I want to, but I don't have the guts to ask. You know that House Kong isn't even a normal noble house. How can we talk to an ancient sect? Xiaolong smiled bitterly. When Kong Mingming left, he communicated with us through your hidden house you. If we go to the Sky Elixir sect directly, they might not even respond to us, and even if they do, we don't have their contact information. I can give you their contact information, but you're right. Han Hu Right nodded. How about this? I'll go back and ask around for you. Thank you, Xiaolong said gratefully. Xin Yan didn't wake up until her afternoon nap. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at the time on her phone. She jumped in shock. It's already noon? I've been sleeping all this time? Yeah, you looked really tired, so I didn't want to disturb you. Lin Yi smiled as he pushed a box of food in front of Xin Yan. I bought this from the cafeteria. Hurry up and eat it, it's getting cold. There's also breakfast here. If it's not enough, you can have some. With that, Lin Yi took out the breakfast he prepared this morning. He saw that Xin Yan hadn't woken up yet, so he asked Bai Weituo to buy 2 boxes of food. He ate in the classroom. I'll eat your breakfast. I like your food. Xin Yan took the breakfast Lin Yi made, a little embarrassed. Lin Yi's food was much better than the ones in the cafeteria. Xin Yan had been living in Lin Yi's villa for a while now, and she'd gotten a lot pickier. Normal food didn't taste good anymore. Haha, it's up to you. Lin Yi smiled. In the afternoon, Xin Yan was still in good spirits. She yawned a lot, but it was much better than the morning. After a whole day of classes, she went home with Lin Yi. Coiling Tiger Right discussed with his uncle and grandpa about Xiaolong when he got home. Coiling Tiger, it's best if we don't mess with that Lin Yi. Him hitting on Xiaolong's wife has nothing to do with us. We shouldn't interfere, right? Yu Jinqian pondered for a moment before giving his opinion. You're right, but Kong Mingming is the disciple of the Sky Elixir sect's 5th elder. If he inherits the elder's position in the future, it'll be like a man ascending to the heavens. No matter how strong Lin Yi is, he won't be as strong as the Sky Elixir sect. He won't be able to go against them, right? Right, Coiling Tiger thought about it a lot, which was why he agreed to Xiaolong's request. Jinqian and Coiling Tiger are right, old Yu said. However, if we call the Sky Elixir sect secretly, Lin Yi won't know. It's just a small effort. Coiling Tiger, don't go against Lin Yi on the surface. If Xiaolong wants to go against you, just watch. You can attack him behind his back, but don't let him have anything to use against you on the surface. Old Yu thought more. He already knew what happened to the hidden house Yu. On the hidden level, Zhao Qibing's kidnapping of Yu Ning wasn't a secret anymore. Lin Yi was able to walk out of the hidden house Yu unscathed, which proved the hidden house Yu's attitude. If the hidden house Yu couldn't do anything to Lin Yi, then what did the hidden house Yu have to go against Lin Yi? Understand. Right, Coiling Tiger nodded. How could he not know that Lin Yi couldn't be messed with? As a result, he kept a low profile in school. He knew that Han Jingjing had the notes, but he didn't dare to take it from her in public. What if Lin Yi found out and killed him? He wouldn't be able to explain himself. Chapter 5973. And I'll call the young master of the Heavenly Elixir sect now, said Old Man Yu. You Coiling Tiger and Yu Zhentian didn't dare to speak. They waited quietly on the side and watched Old Man Yu respectfully call the young master of the Heavenly Elixir sect Silkworm Transformation. Although Silkworm Transformation wasn't old and was about the same age as Yu Coiling Tiger, he was the young master of the Heavenly Elixir sect. His status was respected. It wasn't something that Old Man Yu could compare with. Hello, I'm the Old Master of the Hidden Yu family. May I ask if the young master is here? Old Man Yu said respectfully to the person who answered the phone. He didn't expect Silkworm Transformation to answer the phone personally. Oh, it's Master Yu. The young master isn't here. What's the matter? Asked the woman who answered the phone. Oh, will the young master be free? Should I call again? Old man Yu asked when he heard that silkworm transformation wasn't here. Our young master has been practicing in seclusion recently. He's preparing for a big event. He won't be able to answer your phone for a while. If you have anything, you can tell me, said the woman. I see. Old man Yu was a little puzzled. What big event was silkworm transformation preparing for? But he didn't dare to ask. So, he said, it's like this. Isn't Kong Ming Ming from the Kong family accepted as a disciple by the fifth elder? Now, the Kong family wants to know how Kong Ming Ming is doing recently, so they asked me to help them find out. Oh, that's it. I'll ask Kong Ming Ming to call you back, said the woman after listening. She was the personal maid of silkworm transformation. Her status in the Heavenly Elixir sect was naturally not ordinary, so she didn't have much respect for the disciple of the fifth elder. Okay, thank you. Old man Yu said with a sigh of relief. Kong Ming Ming was refining the pill nervously at the moment. Success or failure depended on this. This was his second time refining the marrow and bone cleansing pill. The previous refining failed. The second refining must succeed, because there wasn't much time left until the silkworm transformation's requirements, so he had to give it his all. Kong Ming Ming knew that his current status and strength were all given to him by the heavenly silkworm transformation. If he failed to refine the bone and marrow cleansing pill, the heavenly silkworm transformation would naturally not think so highly of him, and he would not be able to gain a foothold in the heavenly elixir sect. If Lin was here, he would be very surprised because Kong Ming Ming was now a heaven rank master, a yellow rank level 3 alchemist. This speed of leveling was simply akin to riding a rocket. Of course, in order to cultivate Kong Ming Ming, the Heavenly Elixir faction had fed him the Essence Gathering Pill, the Small Qi Gathering Pill, the Medium Qi Gathering Pill, and the Qi Gathering Pill. Kong Ming Ming's strength could be said to have skyrocketed. Very quickly, he became a Heaven rank expert and a Yellow rank level 3 pill master. The Qi Gathering Pill was concocted by the Xianzhen ancestor. Otherwise, with the Heavenly Elixir factions Heaven, Earth, and Man, although he could also concoct it, the success rate would not be so high, and he would not have had the time to give it to Kong Ming Ming. The fact that Kong Ming Ming received such care showed how important the bone and marrow cleansing pill was to the Heavenly Elixir faction, or rather, to the 5 Elements sect. In the secret room sat Kong Ming Ming. His forehead was full of sweat as he concocted the bone and marrow cleansing pill. Beside him sat the Heavenly Elixir factions Heaven, Earth, and Man, as well as an old man that most people in the Heavenly Elixir faction did not recognize. This person was actually the Xianzhen ancestor. The Xianzhen ancestor was actually sitting here personally to supervise and guide Kong Ming Ming. One could imagine the importance of this pill concocting mission. Slowly increase the temperature, increase the intensity of the fire. The Xianzhen ancestor ordered Kong Ming Ming. Kong Ming Ming carefully followed the instructions. Stabilize the temperature, continue to increase the intensity of the fire. The Xianzhen ancestor continued to order. Kong Ming Ming continued to follow the instructions. The heavenly silkworm female servant did not find Kong Ming Ming. She only saw the 5th elder, so she passed the elder Yu's call to the 5th elder. I understand. However, Kong Ming Ming is currently doing something big. Once he is done, he might be able to communicate with the outside world without any obstructions. The 5th elder was a little relieved and a little emotional at the same time. If his disciple successfully concocted the bone and marrow cleansing pill, he would become the 8th elder of the Heavenly Elixir faction. Although his position would not be as high as the 5th elder, he would still be an elder. This was his disciple, so the 5th elder was naturally happy. However, think about how much effort he had put in to become an elder of the Heavenly Elixir faction. However, Kong Ming Ming's luck was good. Not only did he have someone to assist him in leveling up, but he also concocted a pill. This allowed him to stabilize his position as the 8th elder. All right, The heavenly silkworm female servant nodded and then left respectfully. She did not respect Kong Ming Ming much, but she was very polite to the fifth elder. In the heavenly elixir faction, the elders had a very high status. Other than the heavenly silkworm female servant, they had the highest status. As for the fifth elder, his eyes were fixed on the door of the secret chamber, and he was extremely nervous. "All right, slowly retract the fire." Ancestor Xianjun shouted and said excitedly, "Yes." Kong Ming Ming also felt that the pill was completed, so he quickly began to retract the fire. When Kong Ming Ming finished retracting the fire, the Ancestor Xianjun didn't care about the heat and directly opened the lid of the medicine cauldron. Instantly, the room was filled with fragrance. The bone and marrow cleansing pill was successfully concocted. Kong Ming Ming wiped the sweat from his forehead, and a proud smile appeared on his face. He had been waiting for this moment, and he finally succeeded. He was going to become the 8th elder of the heavenly elixir faction. What Lin Yi? What Kong Xiaobo? They were all trash. No matter how powerful Lin Yi was, he was just jumping around in the aristocratic family level. Would he dare to go against the ancient level? What was there to be afraid of if even the hidden level didn't dare to provoke them? Poor Kong Ming Ming still didn't know about Lin Yi's achievements during this period of time. He still didn't know that the hidden level didn't dare to provoke Lin Yi anymore. He still thought that Lin Yi was the same as before he left. Very good, but the quality is a bit lacking. Ancestor Xianjun looked at the bone and marrow cleansing pill in his hand excitedly, and then directly swallowed it. This he made Kong Ming Ming dumbfounded. The Ancestor Xianjun was also dumbfounded. This bone and marrow cleansing pill wasn't for him to consume. Didn't it have other uses? Why did Ancestor Xianjun swallow it directly? Ancestor Xianjun looked at the two dumbfounded people in front of him and smiled. After I consume it, I can continue concocting. Although Zhao Ming can also concoct it, his skills are still not as good as mine. After I consume it, I can concoct a better quality bone and marrow cleansing pill. Oh. The Ancestor Xianjun nodded. He was shocked earlier, thinking that Ancestor Xianjun had suddenly changed his mind. Although it was Ancestor Xianjun's turn to concoct the bone and marrow cleansing pill, Kong Ming Ming was also a great contributor to the Heavenly Elixir faction and Five Elements faction. Furthermore, the Heavenly Elixir faction and Five Elements faction had spent a lot of resources to nurture him. Making him the 8th elder was reasonable. Chapter 59-74. Is that so? Yushu wasn't interested in the boots at all. Han Jingjing went back to her house after dinner, while Meng Yao, Yushu, and Xin Yan went upstairs to sleep. Lin Yi didn't ask Xin Yan to stay, afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop himself from practicing in the middle of the night. Xin Yan, on the other hand, was too embarrassed to stay anymore. She'd been helping Lin Yi with his practicing before. What excuse could she use now? Lin Yi went back to his room and called Boss Bai to tell him that he was safe. He then asked, "Master Bai, how is the inheritance in my body? Is there any news? I'm looking for information for you, but there's no news yet. Sai, if only I was still in the Five Elements sect, but I can't ask them now." Boss Bai said helplessly, "It's okay, there's no rush." Lin Yi said that, but he was still very worried. How about this? I'll call my second disciple and ask him if I have a chance." Boss Bai naturally understood what Lin Yi was thinking. He hesitated for a moment before making his decision. His relationship with Xianjun wasn't good, but his relationship with Xianjun was very good. Boss Bai's alchemist had passed away a long time ago, and he barely taught him anything, and Xianjun's alchemy skills were all taught by him. As a result, he had always been close to Xianjun. It was just that they hadn't contacted each other for so many years, and he didn't know if Xianjun was still the Xianjun from before or if he had turned to Xianjun's side. There won't be any side effects, will there? Lin Yi asked worriedly. I'll try. If it works, then it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. Boss Bai laughed and said indifferently, at most, I'll lose face. What's the big deal? Thank you, Master Bai. Lin Yi sighed, the former head of the Five Elements sect. He was the former master of the Five Elements sect, but he asked his former junior brother, and he might lose face. All of this was for him. So how could Lin E not dare to do it? If you can grow up, that will be my greatest joy. I still hope that we can return to the Five Elements sect together one day. Boss Bai said. Lin E didn't say anything else. Words of gratitude were unnecessary. It all depended on his future actions. Boss Bai hung up Lin Yi's call and hesitated for a long time before he finally called Xianjun. In the Five Elements sect, Xianjun and Xianjun satellite phone numbers had not changed for many years. However, he had never taken the initiative to call them. He would rather forget about it. But today, for the sake of Lin E, for the sake of his disciple, he had to call Patriarch Xianjun. Old ancestor Xianjun was studying the pill recipe that Kong Ming had brought back. It was a Tier 4 pill recipe, and this time around, it was flawless. However, he was unable to refine it. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If eldest senior brother Xintian was here, he would definitely be able to refine this pill. Right? Eldest senior brother, are you all right? The profound truth patriarch only dared to reveal his true feelings when no one was around. Over the years, under the pressure of the profound earth patriarch, the profound truth patriarch did not dare to reveal his true feelings. He could only swallow his anger for the sake of the sect's grand plan. He could only cooperate with Xianshun. A phone rang. The profound truth patriarch thought that it was Patriarch Xianshun calling to ask him to return to the sect. After all, Patriarch Xianjun had been staying in the Heavenly Elixir sect all this time. However, when the profound truth patriarch saw the caller ID on the phone, he was slightly stunned. It was actually an unfamiliar number. Hello, how are you? The profound truth patriarch picked up the phone. Because the satellite phone number was special, the possibility of calling the wrong number was relatively small. Therefore, although he didn't know who it was, he still picked up the phone. Xianjun, is that you? When Boss Bai heard the profound truth patriarch's voice again, he was filled with emotions. It was as if he had returned to the time when he was young and brought Xianjun to refine pills every day. That time was always so happy. You are eldest senior brother? The profound truth patriarch's eyes widened. The moment he heard the voice, tears filled his eyes. He didn't expect that the person he had been talking about just now would actually call him. Yes, it's me. Xianjun, are you all right? Boss Bai asked. Eldest senior brother, I'm sorry. The profound truth patriarch had a lot of words to say, but in the end, it became that he was sorry because he didn't know how to express his current complicated feelings. It's all in the past. I don't blame you. Boss Bai laughed. He had already thought through what happened back then. It shouldn't have anything to do with Xianjun. He was just used. The person who did this should be Xianshun. No, it's my fault. I'm too cowardly. After so many years, I didn't dare to find you and bring you back to the sect. Sob. The profound truth patriarch cried loudly like a child. However, he didn't care. In the secret chamber of the Heavenly Elixir sect, no one would know. At this moment, Boss Bai also understood that Xianjun didn't walk the same path as Xianshun. His personality was still as cowardly as before. Although he had become the patriarch of a sect now, he was still a child in his heart. Xianjun, don't cry. I know what happened back then had nothing to do with you. Boss Bai comforted him. Yes. Hearing this from Boss Bai, Xianjun relaxed a lot. I came to find you this time because I have something to ask of you. Boss Bai was a little relieved. It seemed that his second junior brother could be trusted. Lin Yi's inheritance method should be settled. Eldest senior brother, please don't say that. If there's anything you need, just say it. It's not a request. If you want me to do something, just say it. The profound truth patriarch hurriedly said, but you also know that there are some things that I can't do with Xianshun around. Are you asking me not to target your disciple in the Five Elements sect? It's not that. Boss Bai denied. I won't make it difficult for you. It's something else. That's good. The profound truth patriarch let out a sigh of relief. He didn't dare to go against the profound truth patriarch. The Five Elements sect could be said to be completely under the control of the profound truth patriarch. He, the second patriarch, was actually just an empty shell. His force was only the Heavenly Elixir sect. However, It was only a force in the dark. On the surface, the Heavenly Elixir sect was still under the control of the Profound Truth Patriarch. He couldn't do too much. Otherwise, the Profound Truth Patriarch would see his flaws. He would be fine, but his two disciples would definitely be unlucky. Chapter 5975. Senior brother, you don't have to check this. I know. Although Xuanjin Ancestor found it strange why Boss Bai asked this, he didn't ask. Instead, he agreed without hesitation. I'll tell you now. Oh, you remember now? That's great. I'll record it. Boss Bai was a little excited. He didn't expect that what he had been worrying about for many days would come to him so easily. Xuanjin Ancestor still respected him as much as before and would do his best to help him. This made Boss Bai very happy. However, if it weren't for this, Boss Bai wouldn't have called to ask for help. This was a blessing in disguise. Okay, senior brother, you're talking about the inheritance of the original power from the virtual attribute to the real attribute, right? Not the inheritance of the ordinary inheritor? Xuanjin Ancestor asked. Yes, this kind of inheritance. Boss Bai nodded and said, the inheritor doesn't need to spend so much effort to understand the inheritance. You just need to go to the source of the attribute to comprehend it. I don't need to call you. There are two ways to inherit the power of the origin. The first is the orthodox way, which requires a series of complicated preparations. After consuming the marrow and bone cleansing elixir, you will head to the land of inheritance to inherit the power of the origin. This is a very complicated process. If you want to know more, I will copy it down as soon as possible and find an opportunity to mail it to you, Patriarch Xuanjin said. Okay, then be careful, Boss Bai said gratefully. It was very dangerous for Xuanjin Ancestor to do this. Although Xuanjin Ancestor could go in and out of the Five Elements Sect Scripture Pavilion at will and read the books inside, it was very difficult for him to copy the original power inheritance and mail it to Boss Bai without anyone noticing. According to Xuanjin Ancestor, Xianqian Ancestor was basically in charge of the Five Elements Sect now. His spies were everywhere. If the Xuanjin Patriarch did this without telling the truth, he would have to work very hard. For example, reciting a section every day and copying it when he went back. Otherwise, if he took the book away directly, Xianqian Ancestor would definitely be suspicious. Xuanjin Ancestor was focused on alchemy. Why would he suddenly be interested in the inheritance? Boss Bai knew very well that there must be something fishy going on. Don't worry. I'll be careful. All these years, Patriarch Xuanjin had gotten used to living under surveillance. If it were not for the surveillance, he would not have been able to cultivate his own force in the Heavenly Elixir sect. By the way, what's the other way of inheritance? Boss Bai continued to ask. Another method of inheritance. It's a crooked path, but it's also a shortcut. Old Ancestor Xianzhan said, that is to let the virtual person and the inheritor of this branch dual cultivate. Through dual cultivation, they can obtain the inheritance of the source power. The disadvantage of this method is that the inheritor must be a virgin. Otherwise, it won't have any effect. Oh, you can pass down the power of the origin in this way. Boss Bai was surprised. Is this method accurate? It should be accurate. That was what was recorded in the sect's ancient books. The reason why I remembered was because Xianqian had researched about this before about inheritors. Xianqian is in charge. Xuanjin Patriarch said, although this method is simple, it is not very realistic. First of all, the known inheritors are prioritized for that plan. It will be very difficult for you to find other inheritors. First Martial Brother, on your side. Who are you asking about this for? Oh, it's a friend of mine. I just want to know. It wasn't that Boss Bai didn't trust Xuanjin, but he didn't want to reveal too much about Lin Yi. It seems that only the first method is more realistic. That should be the case. Old Ancestor Xianjin nodded. First Martial Brother, don't worry. Wait patiently and leave the rest to me. Okay, then we'll keep in touch. When you're done, just call me. Boss Bai said. After hanging up, Boss Bai immediately called Lin Yi and told Lin Yi what Old Ancestor Xianjin said. After hearing this, Lin Yi was shocked. Dual cultivate with an inheritor? What does he mean by dual cultivation? Lin, he had to admit that his thoughts were a little devious. There were many types of dual cultivation, and Yonghua and Dragonesses was also called dual cultivation. But most of the dual cultivation in novels refer to dual cultivation in bed. I didn't ask about that. Since the inheritors have to be virgins, then dual cultivation should be, Boss Bai said. Okay. Lin, he smiled bitterly. His second wife should be an inheritor, and if he dual cultivated with Xiao Xiao, would he be able to fill up one of his void attributes? Let her become a real slave? But the Ice Palace's requirement for Xiao Xiao was to maintain her virginity. That conflicted with dual cultivation, so Lin, he didn't know what to choose. But isn't it a bit unrealistic for me to dual cultivate with 7 inheritors? Indeed, so I'm leaning toward the first method. But we'll have to wait for my junior brother Xianjun to come back with a copy of the method. Boss Bai said. He's under Xianjun's control right now, and he can't touch the core secrets of the 5 Elements sect. Xianjun is also working on the inheritors, but Xianjun doesn't know much about these things, and I don't either. Then what should we do if we dual cultivate? Linny asked. I didn't ask about that in detail. If you're interested, I'll go ask. Boss Bai said. Okay, there's no harm in knowing more. Linny nodded. After hanging up, Lin he smiled bitterly. Boss Bai's news was good news, but it wasn't anything. Dual cultivating with an inheritor wasn't very realistic for Lin E. Even if Xiao Xiao was an inheritor, how long would it take to gather the other 6 inheritors? Even if he did, would they dual cultivate with him? Xiao Xiao would be fine, but what about the others? Lin E didn't want to do anything to force them. Plus, even if Lin E wanted to force them, would they be so easily forced? The inheritors all had ancient powers behind them. There was no way Lin E was going to force them. Shaking his head, Lin E decided not to think about this for now. Instead, he placed his hopes on the first inheritance method that Xuanjun mentioned. Chapter 5976. Chapter 2796. Someone from the Holy Fist Palace, although Lin E was suspected to be a sneak attack, but whether it was a sneak attack or not, it showed how strong Lin E was. Gu Xian believed that if it was him, he wouldn't be able to do it. Plus, he clearly felt that the skill Lin E used was the 15th move of the Heaven class. This skill could only be used by a Heaven class mid-phase master. But Lin E was only an Earth class mid-phase master. Lin E, I'll see you in the test. Zhang Naipeo finally held back and didn't attack Lin E on the spot. Firstly, he was afraid that he would kill Lin E directly and affect the test plan. Secondly, if he didn't use his ultimate move, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to fight against Lin E. If Lin E took the initiative to attack him, it would be fine, but if he continued to attack his right-hand follower, then Zhang Naipeo would become a commander without an army. Oh, Lin E said casually. Zhang Naipeo humphed coldly and said to his other follower, Mo Ba, carry Mo Jio, let's go. Yes, gunslinger. Mo Ba's follower was scared. Lin E injured Mo Jio with one move, so he obviously didn't have much strength left. If he used another move, then he wouldn't be able to block it. Hearing Zhang Naipeo's words, Mo Ba was relieved. He carried Mo Jio and quickly left the restaurant with Zhang Naipeo. They came and left in a hurry, and didn't succeed in showing off. Gu Xian, you stopped me just now because... Lin E turned to Gu Xian and asked. Only then did Gu Xian come back to his senses. The scene just now really shocked him. He didn't expect that the legendary Zhang Naipeo, who killed a disciple of the Holy Fist Palace on the trial road, would actually be defeated. And the person who defeated him was an individual cultivator that he just met, an individual cultivator that he didn't pay much attention to. Before, when Linny said that he injured Feng Nitian, Gu Xian was only impressed. After all, he didn't see it with his own eyes. After all, a long time had passed, and he didn't really see any godly skills, so naturally, he didn't pay much attention to it. But now, Gu Xian finally understood why Lin he could defeat Feng Nitian. Before, I heard that disciple of the Holy Fist Palace also hit Zhang Naipeo once and became a cripple. I suddenly thought, Naipeo just stood there and let you hit him would be a problem? Gu Xian explained. I thought of this too, so I didn't hit him. Instead, I hit one of his followers. Lenny nodded. He'd been thinking of getting rid of as many as he could. Naipeo had brought 2 followers with him this time, which was something he was wary of, but now that he'd gotten rid of one, things were much easier. As long as he formed an alliance with Feng Shui-san in the test, they should be able to fight against Zhang Naipeo. He would deal with Zhang Naipeo, and Feng Shui-san would deal with Mo Ba. Unless Mo Ba was on the same level as Lin Yi, Feng Shui-san, an early phase sky class, should be able to deal with him for a while. Yeah, although I don't know what's going on, but thinking about it, Zhang Naipeo didn't even make a move before the disciple of the Holy Fist Palace was crippled. This is very strange, and he took the initiative to let you hit him. I feel that this is very strange, Gu Xian said. That's why I stopped you, Lenny nodded. I'm worried about this too. This Zhang Naipeo is a disciple of the demon sect, and we can't use common sense to judge him. It seems that we need to investigate carefully. Don't worry, I'll try my best to find out, but the things I can find out are only on the surface. I can't do anything if it's too secretive, Gu Xian shrugged and said helplessly. Not long after Zhang Naipeo left, 3 practitioners came. They were obviously here to participate in the test, but one of them was alone. He looked like he was very unlucky, and the other 2 were on guard against him, as if they wanted to keep a distance from him. That disciple with the noob face is the disciple of the Holy Fist Palace. One of his companions was crippled by Zhang Naipeo, and because he has a grudge with Zhang Naipeo, the other 2 don't dare to get too close to him. Gu Xian explained to Lin Yi and the others in a low voice. Then where are the other 2 from? Linny asked. I don't know about that, but I have news about that Holy Fist Palace disciple, because they fought with Zhang Naipeo, Gu Xian said. Young hero, why don't you come and sit with us? At this time, Feng Shui stood up and threw an olive branch to the disciple of the Holy Fist Palace. In fact, he was not stupid, but he was straightforward and honest. He also knew that Lin Yi and Zhang Naipeo were rivals, and he sat with Linny before, so it was inevitable that Zhang Naipeo would treat him as an enemy. The enemy of an enemy was a friend, and this disciple of the Holy Fist Palace had crippled his companion, so he must hate Zhang Naipeo to the core. The disciple of the Holy Fist Palace was stunned. He didn't expect that someone would take the initiative to recruit him. The disciples of other sects avoided him, afraid that they would provoke Zhang Naipeo's revenge. He was thinking about whether he should continue to participate in the test when someone called him. Hello, are you calling me? The disciple of the Holy Fist Palace pointed at himself and asked with uncertainty. Of course, I am Feng Shui, a sky-class early-stage spiritual master, a disciple of the ancient Feng family. May I know your name, young hero? Feng Shui asked with a smile. My name is Li Siba. I am from the Holy Fist Palace, a sky-class mid-stage spiritual master. Li Siba said with fear and trepidation. Usually, the disciple of the Holy Fist Palace was very arrogant. Although the other party was a disciple of the ancient Feng family, he was only a sky-class early stage, so he would definitely look down on him. However, the situation was different now. Feng Shui took the initiative to talk to him, which was already giving him a lot of face. Haha, young hero Li, sit down. Let me introduce you to the others. Feng Shui pointed at Lin Yi and said, This is young hero Lin, a late-stage Earth-class master. Speaking of Lin Yi's strength, Li Siba's eyes flashed with disappointment. In his opinion, Lin Yi's strength was too low. Among the people here, Feng Shui was the strongest, but it was impossible for him to compete with Zhang Naipeo and the others. Young hero Li, don't underestimate Brother Lin. Although Brother Lin is only a late-stage Earth-class master, he just destroyed a mid-stage Sky-class subordinate of Zhang Naipeo with one move. So, Brother Lin's strength is the strongest among us. Feng Shui also saw Li Siba's disdain and explained. He even respectfully called Lin Yi Brother Lin. Li Siba was stunned and looked at Lin Yi in horror. Chapter 59-77. Li Siba, of course, knew how strong Zhang Naipeo's men were. They were real heaven-class masters, and Lin Yi could cripple them in one move? What kind of terrifying strength was this? He had suffered under Zhang Naipeo's hands before, and he knew how strong they were. Although he was also a heaven-class master, he didn't get the upper hand against two of Naipeo's men. If he didn't run fast enough, he might have been crippled. But he didn't expect Lin Yi to be able to cripple Naipeo's men, and he was still eating here as if nothing had happened. It was unbelievable. Li Siba greets young hero Lin. Brother Lin, you are really my idol. Brother Lin, you may already know that our Holy Fist Palace disciple suffered under Zhang Naipeo's hands, and I thought there was no hope for revenge. I didn't expect Brother Lin to help me vent my anger. I'm so grateful. Li Siba looked at Lin Yi with admiration. Zhang Naipeo and I are enemies, and I crippled him in the Ice Palace last time. It's normal for him to come looking for trouble. It's not like it has anything to do with you. Lin Yi said nonchalantly with a wave of his hand. Damn, Brother Lin, you are so strong. You crippled Zhang Naipeo last time. Did you cripple Feng Nitian as well? Eh. Li Siba suddenly turned to look at Feng Shipian. He didn't know why Feng Shipian was sitting with Lin Yi. Didn't Lin Yi cripple someone from the Fengs? Don't look at me like that, Brother Li. I know my cousin very well. He's arrogant and domineering. He tried to rob Brother Lin's treasures in the Ice Palace trial, and he got crippled by Brother Lin. He deserved it. Feng Shipian shook his head and said, This doesn't affect my relationship with Brother Lin. In actuality, Feng Shipian wasn't an idiot at all. He came here to get medicine for Nitian, but he didn't show any hostility towards the person who injured Nitian. Instead, he showed friendliness. This was enough to show that Feng Shipian was the type of person who looked like a fool. I see. Li Siba nodded. Since Brother Lin is so strong, why don't we nominate Brother Lin to be our captain? We'll form a team and join the trial under Brother Lin's leadership. I think it's a good idea. Gu Xian also admired Lin Yi and nodded in agreement. Of course, I have no problem with that. With Brother Lin leading us, our team is like a tiger that has grown wings. Feng Shipian said with a smile. Lin Yi is my boss. I'll be fine. Chikuan said. Therefore, Lin Yi inexplicably became the leader of the group, which made him feel somewhat helpless. By the way, C.I. Ba, where are the two disciples who came with you from? It seems like he's on guard against you. Lin Yi asked. Since everyone had elected him as the team leader, he wouldn't decline and just called Li Siba. Those two are from the Dark Palace. Average strength, Earth class mid-phase. Of course, it's not that I look down on Earth classes. A master like Brother Lin is even stronger than us Sky class masters. Siba was worried that Lin Yi wouldn't be happy, so he added, These two were trying to get on our good side on the way here, wanting to join me and my disciple. But then we met Zhang Naipeo, and my disciple was crippled, so the two of them just kept their distance from us. A disciple of the Dark Palace? Lin Yi had heard of the Dark Palace before, back when Lin Yi came back from West Star Mountain. Lin Yi had heard of them before. All of a sudden, Lin Yi felt a headache. Lin Yi remembered the trip to West Star Mountain, and suddenly felt like his memories were a little fragmented. There were a lot of things missing, but he just couldn't remember them. Brother Lin, what's wrong? Do you have a grudge against the Dark Palace? Li Siba saw the frown on Lin Yi's face, and thought that Lin Yi had a grudge against them. Do you need me to teach them a lesson? Nope, don't do anything stupid. Lin Yi waved his hand. I was just thinking about something else. It's nothing. All right. Li Siba had wanted to show off in front of Lin Yi, but he didn't have the chance. After a while, more disciples came into the restaurant, some that Gu Xian and the others knew, and some that they didn't. The one that caught Lin Yi's attention was a female disciple from the Ice Palace. Lin Yi thought that either Zhao Qijio or Yubing would come, but they didn't. In truth, the Sky Elixir's test was full of danger, and both Yubing and Qijio were people that Lin Yi had asked Xiao Xiao to take care of. Naturally, Xiao Xiao wouldn't let them come to such a dangerous test. Plus, Xiao Xiao didn't know that Lin Yi was going to participate in the Sky Elixir test. After all, the last time Lin Yi participated in the Sky Elixir test was a coincidence, and Lin Yi didn't have much to do with the Sky Elixir test. At first, Lin Yi thought that he wouldn't meet anyone he knew in the test, but then the door opened, and a cool girl in black tiptoed in carefully, not greeting anyone. She found a corner and sat down. Lin, he spat out the drink in his mouth when he saw who it was. Who else could it be other than Yang Chi-Chi? What Lenny didn't expect was that Yang Chi-Chi would participate in the test as well. What is she doing here? Was she here to trade for some medicine for her friend's illness? Bro, Lin, what's wrong? Shipian asked curiously. Nothing, I just saw someone I know, Lenny said. Then tell her to come sit with us? Shipian said passionately. It's okay, she's a bit of a loner. We'll see. Lin, he shook his head. Lin, he understood Yang Chi-Chi's personality. If there wasn't anything, Lin, he wouldn't bother her, lest she try to kill him. After dinner, Lin, E, and the others went back to their rooms to rest. There were a lot of practitioners in the restaurant, and Yang Chi-Chi didn't notice Lin E. She left alone after dinner, and it seemed like she didn't have any friends here. Naipeo didn't know if it was because he was defeated by Lin E, but he didn't come back down after he went upstairs. He didn't eat either. Bro, Lin, what's this spirit beast of yours? Why does it look like a pet? It shouldn't be of much use in this test, right? Gu Xian was a knowledgeable man, and he found the spirit beast in Lin Yi's hand strange. Chapter 59-78. But now he had finally settled down. Although there were still dangers in his life, it was different from before. Lin, he had a goal and a sense of existence. This was also the first time Lin, he had looked at the 9th princess after Yuning. I've said it before, you're my team member. I will not give up on any team member, Lin, he said. Chi-Chi suddenly felt that this sentence was familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it. She only thanked Lin E silently. She decided that if they could leave this place successfully, she would do everything she could to help Lin E find out what Linny needed in Europe. Don't worry too much, there will be a way. Let's eat something first. Are you hungry? Linny asked. Yeah, a little. Chi-Chi rubbed her stomach. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to leave this place, but after hearing what Linny said, she was really hungry. Then wait for me here. I'll go catch some fish from the lake over there, Linny said as he stood up and walked towards the lake that the pig had pointed him to. Chi-Chi looked at Lin Yi's back and felt very conflicted. She felt very guilty. She had treated Lin Yi badly, but Lin Yi didn't care and helped her every time she was in danger. Chi-Chi wasn't someone with a heart of stone. How could she not be touched? Naturally, Lin Yi didn't know that Chi-Chi's opinion of him had changed. He caught 4 or 5 fish in the lake and quickly went back to where he'd come from. He prepared the fish quickly and skillfully before putting them in a clean place and starting to roast them. All right, eat. Lin Yi gave most of the fish to Chi-Chi, but only took one for himself. Why are you only eating one? Chi-Chi was a little embarrassed and asked. I'm a spiritual practitioner. He just needed to cultivate for a while. You're a physical cultivator, so your physical recovery is slower. Lin Yi said. Then, I won't hold back. Chi-Chi nodded. The difference between a spiritual practitioner and a physical practitioner was that spiritual practitioners could absorb the chi in the air and turn it into their own chi for their own use. Physical practitioners, on the other hand, had to train their body to achieve their goal. Although external experts, after cultivating a martial technique, could also use the surrounding spiritual chi for their own use when executing a martial technique. However, in terms of recovery speed, they were still inferior to internal cultivators. External martial cultivators exhausted their stamina slowly. This was because martial techniques used the spiritual energy in the surroundings. They did not need to use their own quintessence. There were pros and cons to both. However, if the external experts didn't use their martial skills, then they wouldn't be able to do so. Then, Naipeo's Thorn Arts would lose its effect. Naipeo's Thorn Arts could reflect 80% of the chi back to 240%, and if a physical practitioner didn't use any skills and just used their physical body to hit Naipeo, there wouldn't be a problem with the reflected chi. However, not to mention that the masters of the Holy Fist Palace did not know this situation before. Even if they knew, they could only hit Zhang Naipeo with the strength of their bodies. It wouldn't deal too much damage to Naipeo. After all, external experts were also dependable. He won by relying on his martial skills. This was also why external experts were no match for internal experts when they were at a lower level. Under normal circumstances, they would be stronger than inner sect experts of the same level. This was also because when external experts activated their martial skills, they mobilized the true energy around their bodies, unlike internal experts who emitted it from their bodies. The higher the level of external experts, the more spiritual energy they could mobilize, and naturally, the more powerful they would be. Yang Qiqi had a good meal of grilled fish, and she sat on the ground in a daze, looking at the cliff. The sky was getting dark, but Yang Qiqi wasn't sleepy. She was trapped here, and she didn't know when she could get out. Linny, if we can't think of a way to get out when the time is up, will the 5 evil Shi invade our bodies and cause us to go crazy? Yang Qiqi asked worriedly. I don't think so. I'll walk around again tomorrow to see if there's a way out, Linny said. Okay. Yang Qiqi nodded. She didn't know why, but after going through so many things with Lin Yi, Yang Qiqi trusted him more and more. Lin Yi's words made her feel at ease. The next morning, the sun had just risen, and Lin Yi left to look for a way out. But after walking around for half a day, Lin Yi couldn't find a way. It seemed that Tian Chan was very familiar with this place, and if she said there was no way, then there was no way. If Tian Chan was here to accept the inheritance, then she must know a lot more about the 5 Evils Mountains than he did. And so, Lin Yi gave up after not finding a way. He turned back to the lake and continued to catch fish. After catching a few fish, Lin Yi went back to the place where he and Yang Qiqi were, and continued grilling fish. Yang Qiqi saw that Lin Yi was back, and couldn't just sit around and enjoy the fruits of his labor. What can I do for you? Why don't I clean up these fish? It's fine, I'm used to it. Just wait. Lin Yi shook his head and started cleaning the fish with practiced ease, Yanjing City. A pack of cigarettes was quickly finished by Tianli. He tried his best to reduce the amount of cigarettes he smoked, but it didn't take long before there was only 1 pack left. Tianli picked up his phone and was about to call Mr. Lang when his phone rang first. What surprised him was that it was Mr. Lang. Mr. Lang, I was just about to call you. Tianli smiled as he picked up the phone. Mr. Liu, are you panicking? You gave me the money, afraid that I'd run away? Xiaochun smiled brightly. Haha, how could that be? Mr. Lang and I have a strategic partnership, and our medicine business is worth a few $100 million a year. Mr. Lang wouldn't be interested in $30 million. Tianli really didn't think that Mr. Lang would lie to him. On one hand, it was the hypnotist's work, and on the other, the 2 companies would be doing business for a few $100 million a year. Mr. Lang wouldn't be interested in this small amount of money. I was just joking, Mr. Liu. I have good news for you. Xiaochun changed the topic. Oh, what good news? Do you have more cigarettes? Tianli paused and asked. Chapter 59-79. It's already booked? None left? Tianli asked, shocked. Mr. Lang, I can't do that. You have to at least leave some for me. I'd rather make less money than keep some for myself. But the profit is very high. The price of a carton of cigarettes is about 10,000 yuan. I can sell it for more than 20,000 yuan. This batch of goods has a total of 2,000 cartons. Once I sell it, I can make a profit of 200%. Xiaochun said. We invested 30 million, including the money we used to bribe the gangsters when we smuggled them in. That's 50 million worth of profit. That won't make much of a difference. Leave me 10-20. Tianli had thought that the cigarettes would be expensive, but it didn't seem too expensive after hearing the price. He breathed a sigh of relief and asked for more. 20? I'll try my best then. 10 should be fine. 20 depends on the situation. Xiaochun hesitated for a moment and said, By the way, Mr. Liu, let's split the money we earned, about 13 million yuan each. Shall I transfer it to your company's account? Oh, just this one deal? You won't do it again in the future? Tianli paused. The profit was very tempting to him. He was the conservative type. He could keep his business, but starting a business was a bit difficult. Naturally, he didn't want to let go of this opportunity. Plus, these cigarettes had already become his daily necessities. If he didn't have these cigarettes, he couldn't imagine how he would be able to endure it. So, subconsciously, Tianli hoped that this deal would continue. Crossing the border once and bribing the gangsters is too much. This time, I'm still using my connections. Next time, they'll probably have to pay 20 to 30 million before they're willing to help us smuggle the boats. That way, there won't be much profit. I'm thinking about doing it once and then forget about it. Mr. Lang said, after all, our capital is limited. It's just a little bit. It's meaningless to do it again. Is that so? Tianli didn't understand the details of smuggling, either. He had always been doing proper business, and even when he was importing, it was through the official customs channels. He had never asked a smuggler to use a boat to smuggle, so he believed what Boss Lang said. But Tianli wasn't quite satisfied. Should we increase the amount we import each time? Should we talk to those smugglers again? It's not impossible. Firstly, I'm afraid that it will take up too much of Director Liu's funds. Secondly, I'm afraid that Director Liu will think that this business isn't a proper path and you won't be interested in it, Director Lang said. I can look into the funds, but as for this business, I'm not interested in such a huge profit. How is that possible? Tianli said, how about this, Mr. Lang? Where are you? I'll go find you and we can talk about it in detail. I'm in a hotel. I'll take Xiao Chui to your company to talk about it. I'll bring you some cigarettes on the way, Xiao Chun said. All right. I'll be waiting for you at my company, Mr. Lang, Tianli said quickly. Half an hour later, Xiao Chun and the hypnotist appeared at Tianli's company, and naturally, Tianli welcomed them warmly in the guest room. Mr. Lang, you're the best. This business has brought in such a huge profit in just a few days. Tianli wasn't someone who hadn't seen a lot of money before, but to be able to earn so much in just a few days, this speed was not to be underestimated. Haha, it's nothing, it's nothing. If it weren't for Director Liu's support, I wouldn't be able to earn so much money. Xiao Chun waved his hand with a smile. But it's not impossible for us to continue investing. Yes, the more you invest, the greater the return. For example, if you invest a few $100 million, the return will be even greater. Chui Mianshi said, not missing the opportunity. That's right. Then let's invest 500 million. Let's hope we can earn more money. Tianli didn't know what was going on, but he suddenly had a strong desire to invest. He didn't even think about it before saying it. That's fine. Then let's sign another contract and continue this business, Xiao Chun said. All right, no problem. I'll start raising the money in the next 2 days. Tianli's company didn't earn much after becoming the agent of Miracle Dr. Guan's company, but the cash flow was still very strong. When Lin Yi was treating Jinhu, it was hard for House Liu to gather 100 million, but now 500 million wasn't a problem at all. Although most of it was from Miracle Dr. Guan's company, they could still use it once in a while. After all, Lin Yi trusted House Liu a lot. He never checked the accounts or anything like that. So Tianli still had a lot of room to maneuver. The contract is still the same as last time, just changing the numbers, Chui Mianshi said as he took out a contract from his bag and passed it to Tianli. Tianli nodded and looked at the contract. It was the same as last time, but the investment amount wasn't confirmed yet. No problem. I'll sign it now and help you raise the money. Tianli nodded and looked at the contract briefly. Since they had worked together many times, Tianli didn't suspect anything and signed the contract right away. In the next few days, Tianli started to raise money for Xiao Chun. He used the money from the company to buy the medicine for Miracle Dr. Wan's company and some of the money from the customers and transferred it to Mr. Lang's account. With cigarettes, Tianli's life in the future would be very comfortable. He would smoke every day, fantasizing that the 500 million would turn into 1 billion. If that happened, who would doubt his ability to expand? However, in less than 2 days, Xiao Chun called him again. Mr. Liu, it's me, Xiao Chun said. Mr. Lang, what's up? How's the organization of our goods? Tianli asked. The goods are pretty much organized, but there's something else I want to discuss with you. We're going to do it. How about a big one? Xiao Chun asked. A big one? What do you mean? How did you make it big? Tianli paused. How about this? I'll go with Chui, and we'll talk about it in your company. Xiao Chun said. All right, I'll wait for Mr. Lang's arrival at the company, Tianli said quickly. This time, Xiao Chun and Chui Mianshi came very quickly. Less than 20 minutes after hanging up, they arrived at Tianli's company's guest room. Chapter 5980. You? Qibing didn't think that Yui would be so stubborn. No matter what he said, he'd be so cold and indifferent. He had no choice but to say, "Fine, I'll leave then. If you don't want to listen, then don't listen." Oof. Yui snorted coldly and answered Qibing's question. Qibing had no choice but to turn around and get in the car. He said to Qikuan, "You drive, my head is broken." "Serves you right. Who told you to be a busybody?" Qikuan said sarcastically as he got in the driver's seat, started the car, and left quickly. "Mr. Yui, why did you help me?" "It's Ning. Lin, he was injured." But it wasn't to the point where he couldn't speak. With curiosity, Lin, he asked. But Yui didn't give Lin any answer. He turned around and left. Yui's sudden arrival, help, and abrupt departure confused Lin. But among the people present, there was one person who understood why Yui would help, and that person was Yushu. But Yushu couldn't reveal anything. She squatted down and held Lin Yi's hand. "Shield bro, how are you?" "Yeah." "Lin Yi, how did you get hurt like this?" "I'll carry you back to your room to heal," Meng Yao said quickly. "Okay." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Even if he went back to his room, he wouldn't be able to heal. He couldn't use the arts, so how could he heal? Even with General Wei Wu and Skybowl Pig, the two spirit beasts from the same sect, Lin Yi couldn't get pure energy from them with his practitioner's art suppressed. It was a dead end. If Qibing hadn't suggested breaking Lin Yi's dantian, Lin Yi could have used the Qi gathering pill to level up and break through to Sky Class. Then he could have used the art of Dragon Mastery to heal his meridians. Even if he didn't have the pill, he could use General Wei Wu or Skybolt Pig to recover. But Qibing had messed up Lin Yi's plans. One had to admit that Qibing was quite the schemer, putting Lin Yi in a very difficult position. Meng Yao and Yushu carried Lin Yi back to his room, helpless. But Lin Yi smiled and comforted, "Shu, why are you wearing the mid-level golden cicada underwear?" Lin Yi remembered that he had put away the mid-level golden cicada underwear after coming back from the Sky Elixir sect. He didn't think that Shu would have taken it out. Luckily, she wore it, or he wouldn't have been able to take that punch from Qibing. Although Yui had stopped Qibing, it had to be said that the mid-level golden cicada underwear played a decisive role. As for Yui's appearance, although Lin Yi didn't understand, he was grateful. If it wasn't for him, Qibing would have turned his target to Meng Yao. Yushu had the mid-level golden cicada underwear, but Meng Yao didn't. If Qibing really hit Meng Yao, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "I don't know. Shu thought it was fun, so I put it on. I didn't think that Prophet Shu was this good." Yushu didn't know that Lin Yi couldn't recover, so her tone was relaxed. There wasn't a trace of sadness. "I see." Lin Yi suddenly remembered that Yushu told him to be careful before he went to the hidden house Zhao's banquet. He didn't think much of it, but now it seemed that Yushu's prophecy ability was really, at that thought, Lin Yi regretted trusting Qikuan too much. After all, even Qikuan could make mistakes sometimes. But this time, Elder Zhao was willing to sacrifice 200 million to join Lin Yi's side. Lin Yi really didn't expect him to play tricks like this. "Shield bro, I'll be leaving with Yao Yao first. You can heal yourself first. You can tell us what happened today after you're healed," Yushu said. "Okay." Lin Yi nodded. Yushu was about to pull Meng Yao away when Meng Yao stopped in her tracks. "Wait, what's wrong, Yao Yao?" Yushu blinked. Meng Yao turned around and looked at Lin. "Wait, Lin Yi, are you hiding something from us? Your injuries, are they serious?" The miss was very clever. Other than the time he resigned, when Lin Yi was injured, he always recovered quickly. Even if he couldn't fully recover, Lin Yi's broken arms and legs would recover. But Lin Yi had been home for a while now, and his injuries didn't seem to be recovering at all. Plus, Lin Yi didn't ask for General Wei Wu or Skybowl Pig to come. This made Meng Yao suspicious. Lin Yi's injuries might be more serious than she thought. "Oh yeah." Yushu reacted as well, frowning. "Shield bro, what's going on?" Seeing the miss and Shu's expressions, Lin Yi knew that he couldn't hide it anymore. They were starting to get suspicious. Lin Yi could only tell them the truth. "That's right this time. It's more serious than I thought. I'm temporarily crippled." Lin Yi didn't hide anything from these two girls who were closest to him. Lin Yi knew that even if House Zhao could lie to him, Meng Yao and Yushu wouldn't. So, Lin Yi told them what happened today. When Meng Yao and Yushu heard that Lin Yi was poisoned, they were shocked and uneasy. Even Lin Yi couldn't cure the poison. What could they do? Besides, Lin Yi's dantian was broken, and no medicine would work on him. It was the same as walking on the road to death. Don't worry, it's serious, but might not be as bad as you think. Maybe there's a solution. Lin Yi saw their sad expressions and smiled. Do me a favor, call Guan Shuiming Professor Guan, and then call Boss Bai and Mr. Bai. Tell them to come to the villa and think of a solution. With Grandpa Guan's medical skills, the wounds on my body won't be a problem for him. It might take a while to recover, but it'll be fine. As for the meridians and dantian, I'll need Mr. Bai's help. There's almost no hope of curing the poison. I can't get the food from Zhao Qibing, and I can't analyze it. Yeah, I didn't think that Zhao Qikuan would betray us too. Meng Yao complained. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have gone to the banquet. Chapter 5981. Qian Peguang's words were meant to mock the Blood Cloak ancestor. However, he hadn't expected that the Blood Cloak ancestor would nod his head and say, "That's right. The Blood Cloak Yellow Spring sect does have a strong background and a strong backer. Of course, we are not afraid that someone will come to seek revenge." Huh? Qian Peguang was slightly stunned and then laughed even harder. Did you hear that? These three old guys said that they have a backer and a strong background? Ha ha ha. I say, have you heard that the Blood Cloak Underworld sect has a strong backer? No. Dongfang Badeo simply shook his head. What about our friends from the Everyday and Everyday sect? You are one of the oldest ancient sections. Have you heard of the Blood Cloak Underworld sect backer? Qian Peguang turned to look at Pure Young Heavenly Venerate and continued to ask. No. Pure Young Heavenly Venerate also shook his head. Ha! Bloodcloak Ancestor, you are really funny. At this time, you still want to lie to us. Do you think that we are stupid and believe that Lin Yi can fight people of a higher level? Do you think we will believe it a second time? Qian Peguang said mockingly. Since you have a backer, we won't kill you first. We'll give you a chance to ask for a backer. Call your backer out, and we'll talk to him. Let's see what kind of idiot dares to be your backer. Okay, that's fine. The blood-clothed ancestor nodded seriously. Then, he said nothing more. After listening to Blood Cloak Ancestor's words, Qian Peguang was stunned, but he still waited patiently for the next part. However, after waiting for a long time, Blood Cloak Ancestor did not continue to say anything. So he asked impatiently, "Where is he? Your backer? Why aren't you moving?" "He is far away, but close at hand." Blood Cloak Ancestor made an introduction gesture and pointed at Lin Dongfang. At this moment, Lin Dongfang was sitting with his back to the people. So these people had been in for so long and directly ignored him. What? Qian Peguang's eyes widened, and then he laughed until he was out of breath. Ha 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 ha. I say, are you guys serious? You randomly found a village man and told me that he is your backer? Don't tell me this old farmer is your backer? Yes. Bloodcloak Ancestor nodded and said, Mr. Dongfang is the boss behind the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. Cough, cough, cough. Qian Peguang almost burst out laughing. Mr. Dongfang? Don't tell me he's from the Dongfang family? The head of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Badeo, is here. Oh no, his name is Dongfang. As for his surname, you don't deserve to know. Ancestor Blood-Clothed said faintly. Lin Dongfang had never publicly revealed his name in the ancient times. Only a few people who were close to him knew his name. Really? Mr. Dongfang, then stand up and show us why you dare to be the backer of the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. Since you are the boss behind the scenes, we will let you pay for this. Qian Peguang still did not believe that Lin Dongfang was the backer and the boss behind the scenes of the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. The reason was very simple. In his opinion, the old farmer was a temporary scapegoat found by the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. Perhaps Ancestor Bloodclothed and the others were delusional enough to push this person out so that they could be killed by Qian Peguang and the others so that they could avoid their punishment. They underestimated the intelligence of Qian Boguang and the others. Well, since you all want to talk to me, then I will talk to you. Lin Dongfang smiled slightly and stood up from his seat. At this moment, the laziness of a village doctor was gone. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of domineering and indifference of a superior. Hearing old Lin's pretentious words, Qian Boguang laughed again. Behind him, the people who came with him were basically thinking that the old farmer was a scapegoat found by the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. However, the old farmer did not know that he was about to die. Lin Dongfang stood up and slowly turned around. His bright eyes stared at the people who came to the grocery store. There were new faces and old faces. For a moment, he was filled with emotions. You are. The first person who recognized Lin Dongfang was actually Zhong Pingliang. But it was no wonder. How could he forget the person who killed him with one punch? What a terrifying memory it was. The Mad Dragon Ancestor, a peak late-stage heaven-class great perfection expert, was actually killed with one punch? Who would believe it? However, this had really happened and existed more than a decade ago. During the years in the tomb, the person in front of him was the Mad Dragon Ancestor's nightmare. Even after the Mad Dragon Ancestor came back to life with Zhong Pingliang's body, the person in front of him was one of the people he didn't want to see the most in his life. Yes, it was too tragic. Zhong Pingliang looked at the person in front of him and didn't even have the slightest intention to fight back. This was the absolute difference in strength, an insurmountable moat. It was different from the grudge between him and Lin Yi. Zhong Pingliang and Lin Yi, no matter what, had the same starting line. They were both high school classmates. He felt that he had the ability to kill Lin Yi, but this person in front of him, Zhong Pingliang, felt that even if he trained for 100 years, it would be a waste. Even if he really ascended to Heavenly Tao, he probably wouldn't be this person's opponent. After all, this person was said to be a Heavenly Tao master 10 years ago, or maybe even higher. Lin Dongfang looked at Zhong Pingliang suspiciously. He didn't know this person, nor had he seen him before, but he did see the person next to Zhong Pingliang. Kuang, right? I haven't seen you for more than a decade. What are you doing here? Lin Dongfang smiled at Kuang Yo Ancestor and asked. Kuang Yo Ancestor broke out in a cold sweat. He also recognized who this person was. Wasn't this one of the Killer Vajra? Why was he here? Didn't he disappear? Did he bring a group of people to Heavenly Tao? But no matter how Lin Dongfang appeared here, Kuang Yo Ancestor was trembling in fear, but he didn't dare to ignore Lin Dongfang's question. He had no choice, his mind raced. Kuang Yo Ancestor suddenly saw the bucket of soy sauce in the grocery store and was overjoyed. He quickly said, Mr. Dongfang, I'm here to buy soy sauce. Chapter 5982. The reaction of the Mad Bull Patriarch made the people present stunned, and his performance finally made Dongfang Badeo and another elder of the Black Horse Club, who was silent all the way and did not say a word, recognize Lin Dongfang. Of course, it was not that they didn't want to recognize him before, but they didn't dare to recognize him. After all, there were too many similar people in this world. They didn't want the person in front of them to be that person. If the person in front of them was that person, then he was the behind-the-scenes boss of the Bloodshirted Underworld sect. Then what revenge could they take? It was good enough to go back. This little friend, do we know each other? Lin Dongfang looked at Zhong Pingliang and asked with some doubts. Among them, in addition to Zhong Pingliang, Qian Boguang of the Black Horse Club, and the pure Yang Tianzuan of the day and everyday sect, he had an impression of the others. He had seen them more than 10 years ago. Zhong Pingliang said the word I 3 times, and he was so scared that his legs went soft and his eyes went black. He fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth, and fainted. He was scared and fainted. Lin Dongfang was stunned. He had never seen the little friend in front of him, but this person fainted directly, which made Lin Dongfang very puzzled. Let's go out and talk. Lin Dongfang didn't want to expose his identity in the village, which was not in line with his purpose of living in seclusion. So he didn't wait for anyone to speak and took the lead to go out of the grocery store, and the Bloodshirt Ancestor, the Yellow Spring Ancestor, and the Ensign Ancestor followed him out of the grocery store. The Mad Bull ancestor looked at Zhong Pingliang, who fainted on the ground, but he wouldn't laugh at him. After all, the big brother, the Mad Dragon ancestor, died under the fist of this person. It was inevitable that he would be scared when he saw the person who sent him to heaven again. Picking up Zhong Pingliang, the Mad Dragon ancestor took the lead to go out of the grocery store. Although the pure Yang Tianzuan had never talked to Lin Dongfang in the past, he had seen this person's appearance and ruthlessness from a distance, so he was also scared at this time. Seeing the Mad Bull ancestor go out, he quickly followed. The remaining Dongfang Badeo and the elder of the Black Horse Club also followed out of the grocery store. The president of the Black Horse Club, Qian Boguang, was very inexplicable at the moment. What was wrong with these people? Why didn't he say anything when he saw an old farmer from the mountains? Could it be that this old farmer was an expert? But even if this old farmer is a peak late-stage heaven rank expert, is there need to be so afraid? Including this old farmer, the Bloodcloth Yellow Spring sect only had 3 peak late-stage perfect experts and 1 peak late-stage perfect expert. On their side, they had 4 peak late-stage perfect experts and 1 peak late-stage perfect expert. The advantage was very obvious. However, since everyone had left, Qian Boguang could only be the last to leave the grocery store with doubts in his mind. Only Widow Wang, who had sold a bottle of soy sauce at a sky-high price, was left behind. She looked at the group of people leaving in confusion. Just now, Ancestral Master Wild Bull had bought a bottle of soy sauce and had given her 100 yuan. Widow Wang was stunned for a long time. When she came to her senses, these people had already left. Widow Wang felt that they were filming a TV show. What kind of sect was this? Was this a martial arts movie? After all, these things were too far away for a rural woman like her. She had never thought that these things were real, so she just threw them to the back of her mind. In her opinion, old Lin was probably a guest actor. Otherwise, how could he scold these people with just a few words and make them so scared that they didn't dare to speak? This must have been planned in advance in the script. Otherwise, how could a village doctor have such great ability? Thinking about how she had sold a bottle of soy sauce, she wondered if she would have a chance to appear on TV. If there were really scenes of her on TV, then she would be famous. Thinking of this, Widow Wang suddenly became proud. She hummed a little tune and kept the 100 yuan. Of course, she was really ignorant. There wasn't even a cameraman here. How could it be a TV show? But she didn't have much experience, so how would she know these things? Therefore, she was prepared to see old Lin again and ask him when the TV show would be aired. Lin Dongfang took the lead and walked in front. His pace was very fast. Although he wasn't a practitioner, his speed wasn't slow. Very soon, he arrived at West Star Mountain, not far from the fountain. Lin Dongfang came here with a plan. After all, there were so many people, and with his current stamina, he couldn't beat all of them. At most, he could beat 2 or 3, but after that, he would have to drink the fountain water to replenish himself. Otherwise, his body would be abnormally weak like air gooden. At that time, his weakness would be exposed. So this fountain water was used to save his life. Since there was no one else here, Lin Dongfang decided to be frank. He looked at the people behind him and said, "The 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect are my servants. What they do is also tacitly approved by me. If you have any opinions, you can tell me." At this time, Pin Liang had finally woken up after the long journey of Master Kuangyo. But after hearing Lin Dongfang's words, he almost fainted again. He quickly said, "No objections, no objections. Haha. How could we have any objections? Haha. Why didn't you say so earlier? Bloody Shirt, Yellow Spring, Een Sun, you're all Mr. Dongfang's servants. Then can you take me as a servant too? Haha, little brother is fine too. I don't have any plans to take in little brothers yet." Lin Dongfang looked at Pin Liang, his expression becoming more and more strange. Who was this person? Where did he come from? Pin Liang's words echoed in the ears of most of the people present. It was no wonder that these people had witnessed Lin Dongfang's power in the past, but there were a few who didn't know who Lin Dongfang was. This was the leader of the Black Horse Gang, Qian Boguang. Back then, he wasn't the leader of the Black Horse Gang yet. He was just a normal elder on a mission outside. so he wasn't afraid of Lin Dongfang at all. Pin Liang might be scared shitless and wanted to be Lin Dongfang's servant, but in Qian Buowang's eyes, Pin Liang was just a strategist, a normal Earth class. It wasn't surprising that he was timid. What's wrong with you guys? Who is this old thing? Didn't we agree to kill the gloomy elder together now? Qian Buowang started panicking when he saw that no one was moving. Chapter 5983. Previously, the Murloc had expected to write about 200 chapters for the Heaven Stage Island part. However, the Murloc had done a reader survey and voted on the pages. According to the results, many readers wanted to write more about the Heaven Stage Island and Yanhuang Star parts. Therefore, the Murloc had changed the plan for the School Bells fans and would write about this part of the plot in detail. To be honest, the subscription for the new book was better than the School Bells, but the Murloc would work hard to write for the School Bells fans. Before the end, it would not be less than 2 chapters a day. The Murloc would give the School Bell a perfect and wonderful ending of the trilogy. Li Buoyang Boss would end. The 3rd chapter had always been the Murloc's promise. It would be restored when they landed on the Heaven Stage Island. There were 150,000 manuscripts for the Heaven Stage Island part, which was enough to deal with accidents when they could not write. Regarding this part of the transition, the Murloc had written a part of the Secular World manuscript in the first month of the year. He planned to deal with things that could not be updated after the little Murloc was born, but at that time, there were many holes that he did not think of. After all, the book was too long, and the Murloc was not a computer. He ignored some things. As a result, when he saw a hole that was not filled in by a reader, the Murloc realized that many parts of the manuscript had to be rewritten. Filling in the holes was much more time-consuming than developing the plot, so the speed could not be sped up. Chapter 5984. Everyone, please follow the Fishman's public Weibo account Urin22. After everyone adds him, you can chat with the Fishman. If you have any suggestions, you can leave a message for the Fishman, and the Fishman will choose the best and adopt them. Also, regarding the latest updates of the School Bell, as well as the School Bell's manga, movies, and game adaptations, we will inform everyone immediately through Weibo. There will be exclusive manga characters to share. If everyone has any suggestions for the plot, they can all bring them up on Weibo. There were too many random posts on the forum, and although the Fishman would come to read them regularly, it was inevitable that there would be a lot of suggestions that couldn't be seen. Weibo was still very convenient. Let me tell everyone a secret. After a period of time, the Fishman might even choose readers with good suggestions and send them signed books. Chapter 3650. Failure? Translator. Ryuxinji editor. H2DH2 Mr. Although he had never encountered such a problem in the past, the foundation-breaking pill this time was a real 4th-grade pill. Who knew what kind of accident could happen? Carrying this kind of apprehension, Lin E continued on nervously for another 2 hours. Luckily, although the cauldron kept humming, no other accidents happened. This made Lin E tremble with fear and reluctantly let out a sigh of relief. Finally, accompanied by a final humming sound that was even clearer and clearer than before, this time's pill refinement finally came to an end. At this point, even Lin E, who was used to staying calm in the face of danger, was sweating profusely from the shock. The first 2 hours were still all right. Everything was under control, but the last 2 hours were really 2F* king torturous. If it was a person with a weak mind, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. After calming himself down and stabilizing his breathing, he then stood up and opened the godly pesticide cauldron in front of him. The moment the lid was opened, a thick medicinal fragrance instantly spread throughout the jade-pendant space. He only had to take a sniff, and he immediately felt refreshed and relaxed. Looking at the signs, it should be a success, right? He looked into the cauldron expectantly, and after carefully rummaging for a moment, he was suddenly stunned. Turning to look at the display on the tablet, he finally understood F***CK. No wonder it had been behaving so strangely since 2 hours ago. No wonder he almost became mentally ill. So this was the source of all the abnormalities. At this moment, at the entrance of the 14th cave at the foot of the mountain, senior brother Ku Bai was waiting anxiously. If Lin Yi was only worried about the last 2 hours, then senior brother Ku Bai had been nervous for the whole night. After all, whether or not Lin Yi could refine the foundation-breaking pill was directly related to whether or not he could shoulder Lu Bianren's entrustment in the future. When facing Meng Jueguang, a bitter senior brother in the early stage of foundation building and a bitter senior brother in the peak of the early stage of foundation building had completely different meanings. The foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill was senior martial brother's only hope for a breakthrough. If Lin Yi was unable to successfully refine it, then his hope would be reduced to a bubble. Apart from Lin Yi, if he wanted to refine pills, he could only look for the Dan Hall. Even if Lin Yi had given him 30 pieces of spiritual jades last night, in addition to the spiritual jades he had accumulated, it was still far from enough for the 200 spiritual jades required by the Dan Hall. Not to mention that even if 200 spirit jades were gathered, the Pill Hall's Pill Masters might not be able to refine it successfully. While waiting anxiously, seeing that the sky was bright, the bitter senior martial brother was pondering whether he should go to the Spirit Jade Hall to ask for a day's leave for Lin Yi, when the door to the number 14 Immortal's Cave at the foot of the mountain finally opened and Lin Yi walked out. Senior brother Ku, you didn't stay here all night, did you? Lin Yi asked in surprise when he saw senior brother Ku Bai waiting at the door. Hey, I'm just nervous. Anyway, I can't rest when I go back, so I might as well wait here. Senior brother Ku smiled awkwardly and then said nervously, How is it? Did you succeed? It was rare for senior brother Bitter to be so nervous. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head and laugh, causing the senior brother's heart to instantly constrict when he saw this. And he stammered, You failed? But it's nothing much, it's just a dozen or so spiritual jades. Senior apprentice brother thought about it bitterly. If he failed, he would at most lose some materials. It was really nothing much. Lin Yi didn't say anything. He stretched out his hand, and 2 snow-white pills appeared on his palm. The fragrance of the pills was overwhelming, and their shape was the well-known foundation-breaking pill. Gulp! Senior martial brother Ku Bai swallowed a mouthful of saliva. At first, he was in disbelief, but after confirming it, he was overjoyed and said, You actually succeeded? Junior brother Lin, you're really something. No wonder even senior brother Lu praised you for hiding your strength. To be honest, although he was hoping that Lin Yi would succeed, senior martial brother Ku Bai still felt that Lin Yi might not be able to compare to the elixir refiners from the Pill Hall. After all, those people were the mainstream of the North, and while Lin Yi was also a refiner, he came from the common world. He wasn't on the same level as these people. If the success rate of these refiners from the North was so low, then the success rate of Lin Yi, a common world refiner, would be even lower. He didn't think that in just one night, Lin Yi would be able to take out 2 foundation-breaking pills at once. It was like a dream. It wasn't that senior martial brother Ku Bai looked down on the common world of practitioners, but it was the truth. In terms of foundation, the common world of practitioners was on a completely different level from Sky Class Island, and elixir refinement was precisely where foundation was needed the most. According to what senior martial brother Ku Bai knew, in the common world of practitioners, there was only one person who could look down on the local refiners of Sky Class Island, the miracle doctor, Zhang Liju. What he didn't know, however, was that the Lin Yi standing in front of him right now was Zhang Liju's disciple. Lin Yi grinned and handed the 2 elixirs to Ku Bai Shixiao. 2 barrier-breaking elixirs. This should be enough to ensure that you can break through the barrier. Unexpectedly, senior martial brother Ku Bai only took one and said gratefully, One is enough for me. You can keep the rest for yourself. You'll need to use it sooner or later. Seeing that Lin Yi still wanted to reject, senior martial brother Ku Bai quickly said, If it was someone else from the Pill Hall, if they successfully made 2 pills at once, not only would they have to keep one, but I'd also have to pay 200 spirit jades in advance. I'm already getting a huge advantage from this. So please don't reject me, junior martial brother Lin. Otherwise I won't be able to rest easy. Haha, Senior Marshal Brother Kubai, when did I tell you that I only made 2 foundation-breaking pills? Linny asked with a smile. Huh, more than 2? Could it be 3? Senior Marshal Brother Kubai's brain stopped working. He only provided 3 sets of ingredients, and Lin Yi successfully made 3 foundation-breaking pills in one go. Didn't that mean that he had a 100% success rate? Even if Lin Yi said that using waste jades could increase the success rate, wasn't that too much an exaggeration? If this were to spread, those so-called refiners from the pill hall would be embarrassed to death. At this point, Senior Marshal Brother Kubai, who was overjoyed, didn't even realize that the 2 foundation-breaking pills that Lin Yi gave him had rings of pill halo. Even if it was the same type of pill, there was a world of difference between those with pill halo and those without. Chapter 5985. Everyone, please follow the Fishman's official Weibo account Urine22. Once you've added him, you can chat with the Fishman. If you have any suggestions, you can leave a message, and the Fishman will choose the best ones. Also, the latest updates on the School Bell, as well as the School Bell's manga, movies, and game adaptations, will be updated through Weibo. There will be exclusive manga characters to share. If you have any suggestions for the plot, you can post them on Weibo. There were too many posts on the forum, and although the Fishman would visit regularly, it was inevitable that there would be many suggestions that couldn't be seen. Weibo was still very convenient. Let me tell you a secret. After a period of time, the Fishman might even choose readers with good suggestions and send them signed books. Chapter 3654, Big Trouble. Translator, Ryuxinji Editor. H2DH2 Mr. Before he could finish, Meng Juiguang gave him a tight slap as he scolded. You're the pervert. If you want to find a pervert, go find him. Why did you come in my room? You idiot. Do you know what kind of background this guy has? You even want to eat him. You really don't know how to write pervert. Ugh. Ninth cousin, we can talk it out. Don't hit me. Meng Tong was instantly confused as he was chased around the room by Meng Juiguang and almost suffered internal injuries. After a brief moment, Meng Juiguang watched as Meng Tong was beaten into a miserable state. Only then did Meng Juiguang's anger subside slightly. Looking at the curly bear cub sprawled on the ground, he unhappily scolded. It's fortunate that I returned in time. If not, this little thing would have really been raped by you. And I would have had to F***CK the wilderness, and not one of us would have had a good time. It's not that bad, right? Isn't it just a curly bear cub? Meng Tong looked at Meng Juiguang with a bitter expression. Just a curly bear cub? Meng Juiguang was instantly enraged as he snarled. I'll be dragged down by a fool like you sooner or later. Do you know who its owner is? Its owner is called Lan. Mary Lana? Who is that? Meng Tong was still confused. Meng Juiguang looked at him as if he was looking an idiot. He sighed with lingering fear and said, You don't know about Lan Er's virginity, but you should know about her virginity. Soaring Sky Pavilion Master, please go to the heavens. Meng Tong was scared out of his wits. Unlike ordinary newbies like Lin Yi, Meng Tong was close to Meng Juiguang, so he often heard the names of these upper-class people mentioned by Meng Juiguang. The master of Shangguitian Pavilion was one of the top 3 big shots in the whole North Island. This thing turns out to be the spirituality pet of the granddaughter of Shangguitian Pavilion. After figuring this out, Meng Tong immediately felt that his life was bleak. His life was about to come to an end. He even wanted to eat the spirituality pet of the granddaughter of Shangguitian Pavilion Master. Even if he wanted to find a lover, he shouldn't do it like this. What do you think? You idiot. Why don't you use your brain? If this thing didn't have such a background, if the guards didn't turn a blind eye to it, how could it sneak into Lingyu Hall with its little strength? Do you think everyone is like you? Meng Juiguang rolled his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that this fellow was his relative, Meng Juiguang would have already arrested Meng Tong. If this matter was made known to Lan Er, who was the beloved daughter of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's Pavilion Lord, then he wouldn't know what to do. Then what do we do now? Meng Tong's face was pale as he stammered. Luckily this thing hasn't been nailed by you. Didn't you say that it fainted on its own? Then it shouldn't be injured. Let's just throw it out and pretend nothing happened. Meng Jueguang took a deep breath. In the end, Meng Tong buried his head even lower and said weakly, "It wasn't injured at first, but it woke up halfway and wanted to escape. Then I kicked it, F***CK. Meng Jueguang was speechless. After checking the little guy's weak breath, he even had the thought of killing Meng Tong. What kind of rented teammate is this? Meng Jueguang unconsciously pressed on the chest of the curly bear cub. As a result, the little guy started to foam at the mouth. Meng Jueguang was shocked and became even angrier. Are you F***king sick? To deal with such a small thing, is there a need to use such a strong hand? This can't be blamed on me. I didn't use much strength. It was just a light kick. Who knew that a spirit beast would be so weak? Meng Tong scratched his head innocently. Actually, his kick was quite heavy. He was afraid that this little thing would continue to make a noise and attract people outside. That would be troublesome. In the end, with this kick, it was even more troublesome now. Looking at the clear footprint on the curly bear cub's chest, even Meng Tong couldn't help but panic. He rolled his eyes and said hurriedly, "Why don't we throw it out? No one will know that I kicked it anyway." You're a fool. Do you think that everyone else is a fool like you? When Meng Jueguang heard that, he scolded him to his face and said with disdain, "After people find this footprint, won't they find someone to compare it with? Let me tell you, with the personality of the young miss, even if she turns the entire Spirit Jade Hall upside down, she will definitely find the culprit who harmed her spirit pet. When that time comes, just wait for her to be punished." Then what should we do? Meng Tong was so frightened by these words that he wanted to cry, but had no tears. He said helplessly, "Why don't we secretly throw it out? There shouldn't be anyone who can find it in the wilderness, right?" Originally, it would have been a more reliable solution to directly F***CK this little thing and eat it. After all, even if people wanted to investigate, they might not be able to find out that it was Meng Tong. But now that he knew the terrifying background of this little thing, how would Meng Tong dare to have such rebellious thoughts? Not to mention eating it. Even looking at it now made him shudder with fear. At this moment, the only thing he wanted to F***CK was to throw it as far as possible. It would be best if he threw it 108,000 miles away and never to see it again in this lifetime. Meng Jueguang looked at him with a hopeless expression. Throw it in the wilderness? Do you think you can escape like that? The young miss of the old miss can mobilize hundreds and thousands of experts with just a word. Even searching the entire northern island of Heaven Stage Island is a piece of cake. Moreover, how do you know that she doesn't have any special methods to find spirit pets? Then what should we do? The footprint on its chest won't disappear for a while. We don't have any methods to shift the blame to others, right? Ninth cousin brother, you can't just leave it at the sight of it, Meng Tong said with a sullen face. He was really scared this time. If he could escape this calamity, it would probably leave a shadow in his heart for the rest of his life, and he would never dare to eat spirit beasts again. Shift the blame to others? Meng Jueguang's eyes lit up when he heard this. He slapped his thigh and said, "That's a good idea. Can this work?" Meng Tong half believed and half doubted. Ninth cousin brother, the shoes on my feet were issued by the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion. They can casually compare the shoe print and know that it was made by a newcomer from the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion. When the time comes, they can call all the newcomers to compare it. Won't we still be unable to escape? Saying you're an idiot isn't an insult at all. Meng Jueguang unhappily gave Meng Tong a slap on the head and analyzed. Even if the young miss of the old miss knows that it was made by a newcomer from the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion through the shoe print, there are so many newcomers. It's not like there aren't people with similar shoe size to you. As long as we create a preconceived false impression, when the time comes, who will suspect you? What a fool. To be continued. If you like this work, I welcome you to come to Starting Point and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile users, please go to M to read. Chapter 5986. Everyone, please follow the Fishman's public Weibo account Urine22 After everyone has added him, you can chat with the fishman. If you have any suggestions, you can leave a message for the fishman, and the fishman will choose and adopt them. In addition, regarding the latest updates of the School Bell, as well as the School Bell's manga, movie, and game adaptations, we will inform everyone first through Weibo. There will be exclusive manga character images to share. If everyone has any suggestions for the plot, you can bring them up on Weibo. There were too many random posts on the forum, and although the fishman would come to browse through them regularly, it was inevitable that there would be many suggestions that couldn't be seen. Weibo was still very convenient. Let me tell everyone a secret. After a period of time, the fishman might even choose readers with good suggestions and send them signed books. Chapter 3657. What did you say? All the girls around her were fawning over her, and all the boys were chasing after her, making it impossible for her to have any especially good friends. Therefore, this curly bear had become the only person she could talk to when she was lonely. She was completely unable to imagine what kind of state and mood she would be in after losing this little fellow in her life. Left without a choice, Shanghai Laner was even prepared to call the Spirit Jade Hall Master over and mobilize everyone to turn the entire Spirit Jade Hall upside down just to find this little fellow. Right at this moment, Meng Juewang, who had long been looking for an opportunity at the side, came up behind her in a timely manner. Eldest Miss Shangwan, this humble one is the steward of Welcome Pavilion, Meng Juewang. During the day, I saw a little curly bear here, but at that time I didn't dare to confirm that it was your spiritual pet, so I didn't pay much attention to it. Meng Juewang reported submissively. What? You've seen Xiao Bai? Only now did Shangwan Laner notice Meng Juewang and hurriedly asked, Where did you see it? Where did it go? Meng Juewang pretended to recall for a while before saying. At that time, it seemed like it wanted to sneak into the mining area, but before it entered the main entrance, it was discovered by a new disciple. That new disciple didn't say anything and directly kicked it, kicking it half to death before putting it into a bag and taking it away, saying that he wanted to bring it back to the cave abode to roast and eat or something, roast and eat. When Shanghai Laner heard this, she was so scared that she almost fainted. It took her a while to catch her breath. She gritted her teeth and said, What's the name of the new disciple? Why didn't you stop him? Don't be angry, Miss Shangwan. That new disciple is called Lin Yi. He's a new rogue cultivator from the secular cultivation world. He doesn't have much quality and has always been arrogant and unruly. I couldn't persuade him no matter how hard I tried, but I couldn't do anything to him because of the sect rules, so I could only let him go. Meng Juewang pretended to be indignant and said, If I had known that it was Mrs. Pet, I would have saved the little curly bear even if I would have been punished by the sect. Lin, where is he now? Hurry up and bring me there. If Little White loses even half a strand of its hair, this lady will fight him to the death. Shangwan Laner changed from her usual pure and innocent image of a young girl and fiercely bared her teeth. Okay, I'll lead the way for Mississippi. Meng Juewang couldn't help laughing in his heart. A little girl was a little girl. She was immediately fooled by a little provocation. Meng Juewang led Shanghai Laner straight to Lin Yi's cave residence. Meng Tong, who had been squatting at the door and staring at Lin Yi, saw the two of them and hurriedly greeted them. Miss, this is the new disciple Meng Tong. He also witnessed what happened during the day. I asked him to come back in advance to keep an eye on Lin Yi because I was afraid that Lin Yi would really roast the little curly bear and eat it. After all, the quality of the rogue cultivators in the secular cultivation world can't be guaranteed. Meng Juewang introduced Meng Tong and pretended to sigh. Shanghai Laner was not in the mood to listen to his sigh. She hurriedly asked Meng Tong, Is Lin Yi in the cave residence? How's my little white? Is he injured? Meng Tong glanced at Meng Juewang and said, replying to Miss, Lin Yi has been staying in the cave residence since he came back. As for what happened inside, I can't guarantee. Maybe he's already started eating, Shanghai Laner was frightened by his words. She hurriedly pointed at Meng Juewang and said, Then what are you guys still standing there for? Hurry up and break the door for me. Yes. After Meng Jueguang received the order, he raised his hand and directly broke the forbidden spell of Lin Yi's cave residence. With his strength at the peak of the early stage of Foundation establishment, this kind of thing was naturally easy. Little White, Little White. Shanghai Laner hurriedly rushed in. Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong looked at each other with a smile, as if they had succeeded in their conspiracy, and followed them in. Things had developed to this point. In their opinion, Lin Yi was already dead this time. What a big sin it was to kill Shanghai Laner's spirit pet. Not to mention this welcome pavilion. Even in the whole Heaven Stage Island's North Island, he could not have a foothold at all. Maybe they would tie him up and directly hand him over to the Spirit Beast clan of the South Island, making him pay with his life. However, when they saw the scene inside the cave residence, both Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong were instantly shocked. Woo-woo, woo-woo. That little curly bear, who was supposed to be on the verge of death, was hanging on Lin Yi's body, alive and kicking. It didn't look like it was injured at all, and it looked like it was having fun with Lin Yi. What was going on? Little White, are you okay? Shanghai Laner, who had been so scared by Meng Jueguang that she did not dare to open her eyes, finally reacted at this time. The joy on the girl's face could not be concealed, and her hanging heart suddenly fell to the ground. Woo-woo. Seeing Shanghai Laner, the small coiled bear immediately jumped down from Lin Yi's body and climbed onto Shanghai Laner's back with its short legs. It was so agile that it was not injured at all. Behind them, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong could not help but look at each other, and Meng Tong even exclaimed in disbelief, "What the hell? How could it be? It looked like it was seriously injured and was about to die, and I didn't know what I did." Ga. Meng Jueguang hurriedly covered his mouth, and Shanghai Laner turned her head and looked at him suspiciously. "What did you say?" Ugh. Meng Tong really wanted to cut off his tongue at this time. What kind of broken mouth is this? Can this kind of thing be leaked out casually? This is going to kill someone. Fortunately, Meng Jueguang was quick-witted. Seeing that the situation was not good, he hurriedly responded, "Yes. We saw the situation with our own eyes at that time. How can we not know?" "Is that so?" Shangguan Lana looked at the two of them suspiciously, but she didn't take it to heart. At this moment, the most important thing for her was that the little curly bear was fine. Phew! Meng Jueguang breathed a sigh of relief and glared at Meng Tong fiercely. Fortunately, this lady was easy to fool. Otherwise, if the matter was really exposed, even he would be unlucky. As for Meng Tong, he was almost paralyzed on the ground at this time. He covered his mouth tightly and did not dare to make sound. Shanghai Laner was worried as she picked up the small coiled bear and checked it up and down. Although the little guy was alive and kicking, the big footprint on its chest was still very clear. Thinking of what Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong said before, Shanghai Laner could not help but stare at Lin Yi angrily and said, "Hey, did you kick Xiao Bai's chest?" "No, when I saw it, there was already this footprint on its body." Lin Yi shook his head and denied. Chapter 5987. Everyone, please follow Murloc's official Weibo account Urine22. Once you've added him, you can chat with Murloc. If you have any suggestions, just leave a message and Murloc will choose the best ones. Also, the latest news about the School Beauty, as well as the School Beauty's manga, movies, and game adaptations, will be sent to everyone through Weibo. There will be exclusive manga characters to share. If you have any suggestions for the story, you can post them on Weibo. There were too many random posts on the forum, and while Murloc would check them out regularly, it was inevitable that there would be a lot of suggestions that couldn't be seen. Weibo was still very convenient. Let me tell you a secret. After a while, Murloc might even choose readers with good suggestions and send them signed books. Chapter 3685 must be broken. Kong Mingming's strength wasn't that great, but Lin Yi wasn't surprised that he was able to get such a high ranking in a tournament like this. After all, Kong Mingming was a refiner, and he was more sensitive to wood elemental herbs than others. With Su Lingqiang's help, it would be hard for him not to get first place. Of course, this had nothing to do with Lin Yi, but Lin Yi was glad that Pin Liang was able to get into the top 3. After Blaster Pavilion and Mysterious Pavilion were done, it was finally Blue Cloud Pavilion's turn. However, 4 to 5 people reported their scores, and all of them hovered around 200 to 300 points, completely incomparable to the scores of the newcomers from the other 2 pavilions. The 3 elders' satisfied expressions immediately fell. The Soaring Sky Pavilion and Profound Secrets Pavilion's new disciples burst out laughing without restraint, whereas the bald elder, sitting in the middle seat, frowned slightly, saying, "Have all the new disciples of Clear Cloud Pavilion fallen to this state? Truly, rotten wood cannot be carved. Looks like we should make a suggestion to the Elder Council. In the future, Clear Cloud Pavilion no longer needs to recruit new disciples. It's purely a waste of resources." The 2 elders on the side also nodded slightly. No matter what, 4 or 5 people in a row only had 200 or 300 points. This kind of result was really terrible. Based on this trend, it was almost certain that they could break the average score record. It was just that other people were trying to break the upper limit, while this group of trash newcomers from Blue Cloud Pavilion was trying to break the lower limit. Although the scores of the people after him were slightly better, they only hovered around 300 to 400 points. They were still incomparable to the scores of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and Mysterious Pavilion's newcomers. It was only when Meng Jueguang reported Meng Tong's points that everyone present was suddenly shocked. Meng Tong, 1,600 points. 1,600 points. What did that mean? It had to be known that even the highest score of a newcomer from the first 2 pavilions was only slightly over 1,200 points. This score was a huge difference. The other 2 pavilions' newcomers were immediately in an uproar. Even the 3 elders sitting at the top were slightly stunned. Moments later, the bald elder nodded and said, "This newcomer is not bad. He's very competitive. He should have snatched quite a number of points from the other newcomers. It could be considered as a fig leaf for Blue Cloud Pavilion." Hearing the bald elder's praise, Meng Tong could not help but proudly raise his chin at Lin Yi, who was at the back of the line. His provocation was obvious. Lin Yi curled his lips with a faint smile, but he did not comment. And after Meng Tong's stunning performance, the other newcomers once again returned to the 300 to 400 point standard. Besides being ridiculed, it also served as a foil to Meng Tong's rarity. Just as the bald elder had said, this newcomer was very competitive. Among the group of trash rookies from Blue Cloud Pavilion, he was like a crane in a flock of chickens. Xiao Ran, 1,023 points. After seeing Xiao Ran's points, Senior Brother Ku was clearly overjoyed. This result was much better than what he expected, where they would all be wiped out. As for Meng Jueguang, he was somewhat stunned. After he reacted, he immediately glared at Meng Tong in dissatisfaction. It had to be known that he had spent quite a bit of effort in order to silence Lin Yi and company in the trial. Not only did he prepare a wood elemental sensor for Meng Tong to ensure his first place, he had also specially mobilized the rookies so that they would listen to Meng Tong's instructions in the trial. Logically speaking, with Meng Tong leading so many people to deal with Lin Yi and company, as long as there were no major problems, it should have been a simple matter to silence Lin Yi and company. But now, before the most crucial Lin Yi's turn, Xiao Ran's side had already burst out with more than 1,000 points, reserving a spot in the top 3 in advance. He can't even handle such a small matter. What a piece of trash. Meng Jueguang turned his head and scolded softly. "Ninth cousin, you really can't blame me for this. There's really a reason for this. I'll explain it to you in detail later." Meng Tong scratched his head awkwardly as he defended himself. "There's a reason for this? I want to hear what kind of excuse you are using, kid." Meng Jueguang did not believe that with such a huge difference in strength, there was any reason that could explain his failure. However, it was not convenient for him to speak in this situation, so he could only let Meng Tong off for the time being. Afterward, he would settle the score with this fellow who could not do anything but spoil things. Xiao Hongkai, 500 points. Meng Jueguang's face turned even uglier. Although 500 points was not considered high, with so many new disciples in the Clear Cloud Pavilion, the average score was around 300 to 400 points. It was considered a rare high score. He no longer held any hope of silencing Lin, Yi, and company. The only thing he was thankful for was that he had prepared a wood elemental sensor for Meng Tong. At least, he would not lose his first place. After all, a high score of 1,600 points was impossible for ordinary rookies to achieve unless they plunder from other rookies or simply cheat. However, when it was finally Lin Yi's turn, Meng Juiguang was dumbfounded when he saw the number displayed on the basket. He could not react for a long time. "Oh, Juiguang, why are you standing there in a daze? Hurry up and report it." Hu Yanfeng glared at Meng Juiguang in dissatisfaction. Lin, he was already the last one. Everyone, including the three elders, was waiting. "Oh, okay." Meng Juiguang snapped out of his daze and rubbed his eyes in disbelief. When he realized that it was still the same number, he reported in disbelief, "Lin E 1,800 points. 1,800 points." The audience instantly went crazy. Meng Tong's 1,600 points had already shocked them. They never expected that there would be an even more impressive result. Holy sh*T. How is that possible? Meng Tong, who was confident in his victory, was immediately dumbfounded. He was already prepared to celebrate first place. The idiot Lin, he had clearly given Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai a total of 1,000 points. How could he still have 1,800 points? Ninth cousin must have seen wrongly. It should have been 800 points. However, when he rushed over to take a look, it clearly showed that it was 1,800 points. This basket must be spoiled, right? Meng Tong stammered as he said to the similarly incredulous Meng Juiguang. The 1,000 points that Lin he had snatched had all been given to Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai. That also meant that his remaining points had been gathered by him personally. After all, Lin he was not like Meng Tong, who had a cheating device like the wood elemental sensor. How could he gather a terrifying number like 1,800 points by himself? There was only one possible explanation. It had to be that the basket was spoiled. Chapter 5988. All right, you're a man, but when the time comes, this stupid pig will be beaten to death. You're asking for it. Meng Tong laughed coldly as if a scheme had succeeded. Among all the Clear Cloud Pavilion's new disciples, the last one to arrive was Murong Jun. None of the new disciples were dissatisfied with this arrangement. After all, women always had their own privileges at times like this. Not to mention, Murong Jun was an alluring and powerful beauty. When they saw the spiritual pet fluttering beside Murong Jun, everyone's eyes lit up. Even as men, they could not help but sigh at the sight of it. What a dazzling and dreamy butterfly! When it spread its wings, the size of this butterfly could be said to be astonishingly large. Its body was 3 m long, and its wings had a wingspan of 15 m. Its dazzling wings were dotted with specks of sparkling and translucent blue light. At first glance, it was like a magnificent screen that would enchant one's heart. "Butterfly Empress, show them how charming you are," Murong Jun ordered with a proud smile. As soon as she finished speaking, the giant butterfly, which she called the Butterfly Queen, flew into the air. With a slight flap of its wings, blue light scattered down. It was dreamy, like a fairy. "Be careful. There's something wrong with these scale pollen." Lin, he reminded her softly. Then he brought Xiao Ran and the rest out of the range of the blue light. However, the other newcomers were not as vigilant as him. They were still immersed in the beauty of the Butterfly Queen, unable to extricate themselves. After a while, Meng Juiguang, who was the strongest among them, finally realized that something was wrong. He suddenly realized that his limbs were not listening to him. During the month that the newcomers were busy subduing the spiritual pets, he had successfully broken through and was now an expert in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His level was far above everyone else's. As for Murong Jun's Butterfly Queen, although it looked dazzling and dreamy, its strength was only in the middle stage of the heaven stage. With the disparity between them, logically speaking, it should not affect Meng Juiguang at all. However, at this moment, Meng Juiguang's limbs were indeed numb. Even if he could barely move, it was extremely strenuous and slow. As for the other rookies who were much weaker, they could not move at all. Seeing everyone struggle in vain, yet unable to move, Xiao Ran, Xiao Honkai, and the rest looked at each other. They looked at Murong Jun and the Butterfly Queen with fear. This fellow was not to be underestimated. Murong Jun, what are you trying to do? Meng Jueguang felt that he had lost face after being tricked along with the rookies under the watchful eyes of everyone. He immediately berated with a sullen expression. Murong Jun covered her mouth and giggled after admiring the horrified expressions on the newcomers' faces. Senior Brother Meng, don't worry. This is just a little joke that I'm playing with everyone. The paralysis effect will disappear automatically within 2 hours, and there won't be any side effects. Don't worry, everyone. Hearing that, the newcomers heaved a sigh of relief. However, Meng Tong said anxiously, then what do we do for 2 hours? We can't move at all. Why are we having a spiritual pet battle? He had been looking forward to this day for a long time. He was hoping that the Black Rod Ape would go on a rampage and help him raise his morale. In the end, he was paralyzed to the point that he could not even move. What was there to be proud of? Since it's a spiritual pet battle, it's not like you're the one fighting. Does it matter if you can move or not? Murong Jun looked at him mockingly. She pointed at the surroundings and said, didn't you see that your spiritual pets have already escaped? They're not affected, so why can't you have a spiritual pet battle? Meng Tong was stunned and he was speechless. Regardless of the spiritual pet's abilities, they had long sensed that something was wrong. Just like Lin Yi and company, they quickly retreated to the side. Only their masters were left standing there in a daze. Now that they had been affected, who else could they blame but themselves for being stupid? If someone else were to tease him like that, Meng Jueguang might have taught them a good lesson. It was a way to establish his authority when he was promoted to the position of third pavilion master. However, the other party was Murong Jun. She was a capable helper that he would have to rely on in the future. Furthermore, he was her guest, so he could only turn a blind eye and pretend to be magnanimous and tolerant. Since Meng Jueguang did not say a word, the other newcomers naturally did not dare to say anything. Although Meng Tong did not have much of a brain, other than drooling over Murong Jun, he was actually quite afraid of her. Hence, even when the referee arrived, everyone still looked as though they were paralyzed and unable to move. The spiritual pet battle had begun in such a strange atmosphere. As mentioned before, the final points of this spiritual beast assessment were composed of 2 parts. One was the spiritual beast level, and the other was the spiritual beast strength. The spiritual beast level was clear at a glance, and the points could be calculated directly. As for the spiritual beast strength, it would be won through a single round of elimination battles. It was entirely dependent on the spiritual pet's own performance. Although such a rule setting seemed fair and reasonable at first glance, strictly speaking, there were still some drawbacks and shortcomings. After all, not all spiritual pets were combat-type spiritual pets. For example, a spiritual pet like Lin Yi's Sky Thunder Pig was purely trash in terms of combat power. However, its unique treasure hunting characteristic determined its value to be far beyond that of ordinary combat-type spiritual pets. Just like Li Zhongming's Ghost Tiger, it was an existence with strategic value. Such a strategic spiritual pet, according to the rules of the spiritual pet battle, was almost impossible to obtain high points. This was actually a very unfair thing. However, since the higher-ups had already given such rules, even if it was not fair, there was not much to criticize. Even if one was dissatisfied, one could only hold it in. After all, this was a world where the strong were respected. So what if one was a strategic spiritual pet? If one's fist was not as hard as the other person's, then one deserved to be unlucky and cry in one's own grave. Under the supervision of the referee, the newcomers went forward to draw lots to determine their opponents. Apart from Lin Yi and a few others, the others walked like zombies. Fortunately, they could still move, so they did not embarrass themselves. They won. Lin Yi looked at the number on the wooden lot and searched among the crowd. Finally, he locked onto a newcomer and his lips curled into a smile. At the same time, the newcomer looked at Lin Yi's side and held the A2 tag in his hand. This newcomer was the publicly recognized weakest, Cha Wu. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.